There's two things I would tell my younger self. One is it's gonna work out. It's not always going to be like this, and because I think just having that little bit of extra hope throughout the whole thing. And the second part of it is develop some patience, because it's written on my notice board over there. I'm one of the most impatient people on the face of the planet. When something good happens, I'm like, this is it, I've done it now, I've made it. Like, this one YouTube video blows up and I'm like, that's it, I'm going to be helping the whole world. And I still kind of like that. I said to my wife, it makes me very, very vulnerable thinking like that, because it never ends up being the one, or hasn't done so far. And I'm like, I'm going to keep on believing that every time it happens. And I don't care if it makes me vulnerable to have a low mood afterwards. But it's like, so that's the whole thing, is I tell myself it's going to be okay, it's going to work out. I know you're not able to see it now, but you get through all of this, because there were a lot of periods where I just thought I wasn't going to.
Welcome everyone to another GWC episode, a special podcast today. We have two hosts here, Deadeye and I. Deadeye, welcome. Thank you for joining me on this.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And as you said, welcome everybody. GWC for the Mind. This is a little different than most of the podcasts we do, because this is a charity event podcast. We've already got some links up. If you need any information, just hit us up. And what we're doing is we're doing this podcast and charity event for Mind, which is a UK-based mental health support organization where you can get support, you can help them out, you can volunteer. They've got shops there in the UK. And just last year, between 2018 2019, these guys, they answered 118,000 questions via phone as far as mental health goes, and 15.9 million people access their information. So they're definitely reaching out and touching some people, helping them out with mental health, which is why we're here today. And we've got a couple of guests, as Mizzi said. We've got Android. We've also got, you saw him in chat there, MindsetbyDave. So we're excited to talk to them. But what we're going to do before we jump into that, when we get back, we'll be bringing Android in here. We'll do a little introduction for him. But before we do that, we're going to play a video real quick, about a 5-minute video, just kind of summing up what Mind is, what they do, and to give you a better idea. And if you recognize the guy on the video, that's because that is Stephen Fry, the president of Mind. Also a prominent actor. You've seen him in things like V for Vendetta and the Sherlock Holmes, the second installment of the Sherlock Holmes. And what brought him to the scene was the mental health scene was a movie that he did a little while back about depression. So be sure to check that out if you haven't. And we're going to go ahead and roll that video.
There are a number of misconceptions surrounding mental health. There's an enormous stigma. Britain is a country, perhaps more than any other, where you might say that the national emotion is embarrassment. And nowhere is that clearer than when it comes to issues of mental health. We're addressing a real crisis. 1 in 4 people in any given year suffer from a mental health condition. The greatest cause of death amongst men under the age of 35 is suicide.
My first overdose was in 2003, December. I felt I had no future. I couldn't hold down work. I genuinely believed that the people around me, for all the hurt I was causing them, would be better off if I wasn't there.
Bipolar changed my personality by making me the person that I didn't ever want to be. I was very, very low. My self-confidence, self-esteem and self-worth went. I just felt very sort of isolated, and I felt like I couldn't talk to friends and family because I couldn't really express what was going on. I knew there was something wrong, but I couldn't put it into words how I felt.
When I was in hospital, physical restraint would happen quite regularly to me. I spent most of the 90s, which was my 20s, in and out of hospital with 5 really serious admissions. It was just an unimaginably fearful experience, and I felt quite scared, isolated, not many people to turn to.
Someone mentioned Mind to me. I went down one evening and I was fortunate that one of the staff there was able to spend some time with me. He just reassured me that what I was living through was perfectly normal. I began to develop relationships and friendships with people who I could actually speak openly with about my mental illness. People who, as I put it, they got it.
My first experience of Mind was through a recovery centre in Hackney called Mind. Just went there and it was fantastic staff, discussion groups, art, empathy, compassion is at the forefront of their organisation.
They really do help people, and they care as well, and it's very, very obvious that they're there because they want to help people, not just because it's their job.
There's something really extraordinary about the Mind Network and the work we do with people with lived experience of mental health problems. Sometimes people come to us because they need our help and support, but as they receive that help and support, they're often then become part of our movement for change.
I got in touch with the media team and they asked me if I would like to be involved in a couple of the projects.
Over the last couple of years we've been campaigning on the issue of restraint, which is when somebody's being held down against their will. Gary was very involved in the campaign from the start, and he really helped to bring the campaign to life by sharing his very traumatic experiences so that people could understand what it feels like to be restrained.
Just sharing that lived experience, which is so important. A lot of the experiences, once you talk about them, I'm sure it does take away a lot of the fear and normalises it a bit.
Because Solent Mind have helped me, I want to give back and help others because of the fantastic work they did with me. They started coming up with different ideas that I could do, and one of them was to start going into colleges. My name's Avi and I'm from the mental health charity Solent Mind, and we raise awareness and understanding of mental health in a project that I run called Heads Up, which is for young people, and just to get an understanding of what mental health is and how important it is to talk about mental health.
I thought, you know what, I'm going to raise some money for Mind because I'd never forgotten the impact that Mind had had on my life. I'm now currently approaching the end of 12 months of fundraising for Mind.
It was the most amazing experience of my life, running the Virgin Money London Marathon for Mind. The crowds were absolutely fantastic. Mind constantly say that no one should live with a mental illness alone, and that's my mission, to help them to achieve that and help others in the same way that they helped me those years.
We are Mind, and we are working together to make a huge difference for now and the future.
Oh, what's going on? Did you see what I saw?
What's that now?
We got a dono.
Oh, nice.
We got a big dono, 50.
50.
Thank you so much, man.
Oh, there it is. Zero. That's my boy. So Zero is a mod for one of my channels. And
thank
he's
you
been
so
with
much.
me for quite some time. Much love, Zero. Thank you very much, my man. We do appreciate it. It is so Mind. I wasn't familiar with Mind until Mizzi had brought this charity up to me, and I got to looking into him, and I think it's absolutely amazing. And me being a guy, until recently, you know, guys' mental health was, you know, kind of took a back seat, you know, with things like Man Up, you know, and things like that. You know, men are kind of expected to tuck that down and be the rock and things like that, and that's very damaging if they don't seek help. And our pride often stops us from doing that. So an organization like this is amazing because it allows a man that may have a little bit too much pride to go in and, you know, and get some help if they feel like they're struggling. But as we move forward, we're going to bring Android in here. So Android, he's a member of the Battlefield gaming community, LUDS, which is an EA confirmed platoon over there. They do some work with the Scottish Hellfighters, which I'm very familiar with. Have done some work with them as well. And he's somewhat of a community liaison. You know, he goes around and, you know, he brought the Mind organization up to GamersWeCare. They're doing some stuff this entire week, and Android has been a big part of that. So we're going to bring him in and talk to him. Android, how you doing, buddy? Tell us a little bit about yourself and why you've gotten into this.
Hey, yeah, I'm doing great. Thank you for asking. Yeah, so Mind, the charity Mind, has always been something that I've always been really appreciative of, and I've used them before as well, and I've had good stories about them from friends as well. And I did some actual work with them, just groundwork fundraising back in 2016. So they always had a good impression on me. And then I realized that it was mental health month this month, and I had been getting a lot of stories about people sort of facing lessening restrictions and how their sort of anxiety was going to overdrive because they were sort of facing social situations they hadn't faced over the last few years or so because of COVID. So I thought it'd be a good time to just sort of highlight Mind as a charity and highlight mental health, because obviously as we go back into the world and as we go back into sort of some sort of normality, I think that a lot of people will find it hard to like sort of open up at first. But I think that over time, most of us will be able to sort of recuperate. I think that that was the most important thing that I wanted to sort of bring across and make sure that everybody knew that even in, normality, there's still hardship.
Awesome. We appreciate that. And I'm sure the people that you've helped and the ripple effects of that, they appreciate it as well. So yesterday you had a battlefield event that goes along with this Mind campaign we have going. Today we are here at the podcast. We've got our first dono coming from Zero, $50. It's not required, but it is much appreciated. And 84% of every single pound goes into the charity of Mind there, and doing charity events and things like that and helping people out. Now you have some other events coming up. It looks like the 24th, we've got the Apex Legends Viewer Challenge. The 25th, we've got Apex Legends 1v1 Tournament. The 26th, Apex Legends 1v1 Finals. 28th, Call of Duty SVS Tournament, or is that 5v5? And then Call of Duty Tournament Finals. So tell us a little bit about those and what's going on with those coming up, because those are extensions of this Mental Health Awareness Week for Mind, correct? All of these events are in correspondence with that charity.
Yeah, so we had Battlefield yesterday, and that was a huge success. We took over, it was the Let's Take Over of SEO Saturdays. And we raised around 100 or so pounds yesterday by doing challenges. We had HVT marks on LUDs ourselves. So people who sort of got our tags, we donated 10 pounds to charity for that per person. And then we've sort of revised some of the schedule upcoming. So we do have Apex Legends viewer challenges, which will be happening on Tuesday. And then we have a arena win race happening on the Wednesday. Which will be just seeing how many people can get, how much wins they can get within like 4 hours or so. And then instead of having the COD tournament, we'll be having a viewer challenges for that as well. That is going to be done by a whole host of streamers. They'll just be doing, and viewer challenges basically you donate. So if you donate £5, and you can tell the streamer what you want them to do for that £5. So it could be a game where you want them to just sort of go out with knives only or something, and
change up the controller settings, things
exactly.
like that.
Yep. So the harder the challenge is, that the more you would have to donate, and so the streamer can sort of set their own amount. It's like, okay, if someone wants me to like play on 20 cents, you'll have to donate like £25 for this game or whatever. And so that's the main goal.
Anybody familiar with GWC is familiar with those viewer challenges. Those are fun. We've done a lot of those over the years, and they can get very, very interesting. And so the Call of Duty comes after that, after the viewer challenges and the tournaments. What about these tournaments? These are how is the donations tied into these tournaments? How would somebody, if somebody wanted to support these tournaments and donate to Mind during the tournament? Some people may really want to jump in for the Call of Duty part of it. How would they go about that?
So with the tournaments, like I said, we had to revise the schedule a bit. So the tournaments won't be part of the week anymore. We've had to take them out because of logistic difficulties. We replaced them with other events. Viewer challenges were actually replaced with the tournaments, and then on Sunday, which will be the last day, we'll be having, instead of having the grand finals for the tournament, we'll be having a customs, Modern Warfare multiplayer customs, in which we've had this actually multiple times before, in which we just like get a bunch of people together, 20, 30 people together, and we just sort of goof around for like an hour or 2 or 3 hours on customs, do sort of stuff like one round chamber, and stuff like that. And so most of the time, I think that people can sort of donate because they already subscribe to people and they already sort of leave bits for people that they support. And so I think that most of the streamers this week will be encouraging everybody who wants to subscribe or leave bits to instead donate to the charity.
Donation.
Yep, got another one. Zero coming in again with another 40. Thank you
You're
very
crazy.
much.
Thank you very much, man. Thank you so much. I just I couldn't stop saying it, and I wanted to say it. By the way, how did you came up with Tiltify, or was it even the first event you organized like this, or is it how many times did you do it before? Even I don't even know.
So with Tiltify, this is the first ever event with Tiltify. But I have organized a lot of tournaments. I've organized a lot of community nights by myself with Champers as well. I think that everybody here would know him.
Mostly on Xbox or on all platforms, or?
So Battlefield has always been on Xbox only because LUDs because there's no crossplay, obviously.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
Yeah. But every other event is all platforms. Apex is all platforms. Call of Duty is all platforms as well. Because I don't really think that there should be any sort of divisive sort of techniques in that.
That's nice. Salom, maybe you can put the link of Android in the chat again, because he's doing a lot for the community. He's organizing in-game events. If you're also like an Xbox player and looking for a community to join, I'm pretty sure he can help out with that as well. Just follow him on Twitter, guys. Amazing. Thank you so much for doing this, because it takes a lot of time and effort, and you put a lot of work into this, right?
Yeah.
How much time would you think all of this organizing? When did you start? Like, how much time did it take you?
I started around, the initial plan or sort of prep in my mind started around a month ago or so. But the actual planning and like me talking to all the other people and sort of sending emails and everything, that's around 2 weeks ago or so. And as I say that, there's another donation coming in.
Wait, I didn't.
MindsetbyDave come in with a $40. Yeah, that puts us well over the 100 mark. Just right here in the beginning. Do appreciate it.
Yeah, it's like
Dave is our next guest, ladies and gentlemen. He'll be coming up here shortly.
It's Dave saying like, "Let me in now."
Right?
Yeah,
he's trying to bribe his way in.
Yeah, right.
Shave a little time off.
Do you think it's working? I think Twitch can actually ban you for this. By the way, we need to be careful.
I'm sure they'll allow it for charity.
So Android, we do appreciate all the stuff you're doing. I mean, anybody that gets involved and helps to organize these charity events, no matter how big or small, it impacts somebody. It helps somebody. And I mean, I think that's what we're all here for. It doesn't matter if it's 1 or 100, because at the end of the day, you got to do it one at a time. Yeah. Do you have anything in closing you want to drop on us, Android, that might be going on, or something that may be going on in the future, something you've got on down the line you're thinking about doing?
Well, I just read chat, and Ian makes a good point that there's also a raffle going on. So the first place prize for the raffle is actually sponsored by Luds Gaming. They put down like a really, really good loot box for first prize. There's a Call of Duty game in there. There's a really cool Xbox controller in there. And then second prize is a desk cooler. And then the third prize is a wireless keyboard. And then all donations that are over £5 are automatically entered to the raffle. And the raffle will be announced on Friday. All the winners will be announced on Friday.
Nice. And this is donations across the board. Donations here. This is donations through the Tiltify, correct?
Yeah.
So okay, so anybody that donates here today will be entered in the raffle. Anybody that donates during any of these events that we have going on during the week. And ladies and gentlemen, you can go over to the GWC Discord. Mizzi is going to post up an entire schedule of these events coming up and where you can find them and things like that. And so those are some awesome prizes.
Also, for the people who are maybe watching this later, you can always find the donation link in our about of the Twitch channel there. As you know, guys, we are not taking tips or anything directly, but what we do is supporting charities like this. And yeah, so if you want to do a dono, we are doing this event for another week. So enough about donos. I have one last question. Why do you think is being mindful or the awareness of mindfulness important for you and your community?
I would say that mental health is always something that's looked down upon or stigmatized. And I think that even though a lot of work has been done around mental health, it hasn't been destigmatized. It has just been romanticized now, to the point where, it's not really seen as it's not really seen as an illness, as more of like sort of a personality trait, which it's not. It is, people who have depression or who have anxiety, or any sort of other mental illness, they have an actual illness, and it does physiologically affect your body. And I think that anytime anybody does any of these events, there is a little bit more erosion or sort of a little bit more weathering done to the stigma that we've already put up in society. And so I think that being mindful and just taking care of your own mental health is not only important for everybody else who comes down the line, because then the illness is destigmatized, but it's also really, really important for yourself, because then you're taking care of yourself, not only physically, but also mentally.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I agree 100% that it is often overlooked because it's not often seen outright or manifests itself where everybody can notice it. So I think that's very valid.
But I feel we are in a time where everything changes a little bit more. I feel more people are open to talk about mental health than, let's say, like 2 or 3 years ago even, right? Or is it only
definitely.
like my personal, I'm not sure if it's just my subjective view on things, or if it's really like that, especially because I'm doing this in this area.
No, I see it a lot. I scroll through TikTok quite a bit, and you see a lot more where everybody across the board is recognizing mental health. And again, me being a man, especially in men, it's been kind of the status quo that if you're a man, you need to man up and not worry about, you just need to handle your stuff and not ask for help because it's seen as weakness. But a lot here lately, you see it on TikTok and Facebook where men are getting support. And not downplaying the mental health issues of women at all, just saying it, traditionally it's been more difficult for a man to come forth about stuff like that. I know, in some of my darker times when I was a lot younger, it wasn't something acceptable and that help wasn't made readily available. I got lucky. And I came out of it all right through good friends, but some people need a little extra.
Hey, Steve is in here. How you doing, man? Bloody.
Oh, your big brother Steve.
How you doing? I don't know. I see more and more, especially in shooter games, more and more male streamers talking about their mental health, and it's very interesting to see that, and I like that. And I don't know. It's good to see that people are willing to talk about that and listen. Shall we bring in Dave?
Absolutely.
Teacup, by the way, guys, Teacup wanted to join us, but unfortunately he had to work later and he couldn't make it. So that's why he left Android alone with us.
It's all right.
Dave, if you hear that, I would say just jump into the Zoom call. And Android, thank you so much.
Thank you
for joining us here, and
appreciate it, Android.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for doing this. This is really appreciative. And we've raised a lot in like the first 10 minutes, so that's great.
Yeah. Well, sitting at what, 340 pounds? Is that what we're sitting at?
Yes.
That's amazing. That's amazing, guys. That is absolutely amazing.
I thought like my first thought was really like when you asked me, this is an opportunity for us to give some value about the whole subject. And I think this is the most important thing. And I'm really looking forward to the talk now with Dave, because I think he can show us a few tricks maybe, or maybe just another way of viewing things, or whatever it is. I'm looking forward to talk to him about mindfulness and mindset. We get another donor
one coming
in here.
in. Coming in.
Thank
5.
you so much. Oh, there he is. Wait, there he is. There he is.
So
my name's still Android, I think. On that.
That's
Oh,
okay.
yeah,
You
it
can
is.
be Android for tonight.
It's my weekend name.
It's your weekend name.
Right. It's a stage name. Stage name. So, ladies and gentlemen, Mindset by Dave. I was not familiar with Dave until here recently. I looked into him, and I'm going to tell you right now, they're going to throw a link up. Go to his YouTube, check out some of his stuff, check out his live stream. It doesn't matter what you're looking for. If you're looking for, he's got several different playlists that are amazing. Quick fire mindset and mental health. Those are going to be, somewhere between 10 and 20 minutes long. If you've, just got a couple of minutes or so, check out, the mental health section. He's got a lot of different poems that are around 2 minutes, 3 minutes, things like that. He's also got a little animated series there that are about the same time and really, really good. I liked a lot of the things that I saw over on Dave's channel, and especially one of the ones I went through was a poem that said, "Be kind always." And a part of that stuck out to me with everything that's going on in PPE and mask and all that was, he said, what we need as far as PPE is people promoting empathy in that poem. And that was, I really like that. And that kind of stood out. There's a couple other things, but Dave, how are you? Welcome to the stream. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
I'm doing really good. I'm representing for Mind over here tonight as well. So, what do I do? Well, I basically say I'm a mental health streamer, not a streamer that does mental health. So, what that means to me is that with streamers that use the mental health tag, I've got no disrespect for any of them. I think there's so many amazing ones out there. But mental health is we play games, we entertain, and then mental health, is a secondary. For me, in mental health is the primary. I played games for a few months at the beginning, and I really didn't want to. I wanted to just use the games as a way to get into the conversations. And I remember kind of setting a really early goal on Twitch being the stream that I can do as just chatting, because there's enough people in there that I can just talk about mental health the whole time, the better. And that was something we achieved around about October, November last year. So before all of this, I am a mental health educator in the UK. So the show, The Mental Health Family Hour, that's on that YouTube link. We actually won an award off the Prime Minister for that last year for our services to mental health. But the co-host that I work with on that, before the pandemic, used to go into schools and teach kids about mental health. I go into businesses and teach people about mental health over there as well. And that's kind of what I did. And then when I was all set for 2020 to be the best year of my life in terms of seminars, and I had loads booked up for the rest of the year. And then one fateful week in March 2020, when the whole world got locked down, I was just like, cancellation. So I was right. I need to pivot. I need to do something else. And I'd been talking about doing Twitch for a long, long time, but just never really been given the kind of the kick up the bum I needed to do, to kind of really go for it. I'd already bought the webcam, thankfully, because getting hold of one of them in the first couple of weeks after lockdown was like, let's buy a Logitech for £500. It's like, no, let's not do that. So yeah, and then now obviously going back into the real world opening up again. One of the things that you were talking about a little bit before with Android, it was about this whole idea of the anxiety of getting back to normal, the anxiety of going back to the real world. That's something that I'm working with a lot of people on now. And that's something that I've kind of been talking about with businesses and stuff since people started enjoying working from home, basically. And hopefully, well, not hopefully, we are over the next few weeks starting to go back into schools again. I've been doing businesses over Zoom in the last year, so we're starting to kind of go back physically into businesses and stuff now, which is nice, because I'm a really, really fidgety person, and being sat at a desk just doesn't work for me.
I mean,
I can relate.
I can relate to that too. Can we ease a little bit into your story? Like, can you give us a picture of basically who you were up to who you became?
Okay. So at 14, I was struggling with depression. I didn't know what these feelings were. I felt sad all the time. I felt I had suicidal ideations. I thought about hurting myself, but never did at that age. My mum and dad had broken up when I was 6, and my dad really didn't want much to do with me at all. And I was getting bullied in school. So that was kind of what I thought was, the problems and stuff. But at the time, I went to speak to my dad about the bullying, and my dad, I'm 6'2", and like pretty chunky, you know. It's like, so my dad was just like, how can you possibly get bullied? You're so big. And that was the end of the conversation. So I knew that I couldn't really open up to my dad about it. But my mum at the time, because she'd been left on her own looking after me and my brother, she'd started her own business, and she was like working like every hour of the day. So she never said she didn't have time for me, but you know, at 10 years old, I'm like, mum's busy, best leave her alone. So I took myself off to the doctors, and I got what is a very controversial and very speedy diagnosis of bipolar disorder, which is not supposed to happen by a doctor, but my doctor at 14 diagnosed me with bipolar disorder, or manic depression as he called it at that time, because I would alternate between extreme highs and extreme lows. And they basically put me on a bunch of mood stabilizing medication, which left me feeling pretty numb for about 3 years. And then I moved out of Liverpool, where I'm from Liverpool in the UK. And I moved out of there. When I moved out of there to a local town nearby, I had a shaved head and a Scouse accent. All the bullying went away at that point, because everyone thought I was just like a Scouse accent. I don't know if either of you are familiar with it, but it's quite harsh and makes you seem like you're going to hurt somebody sometimes. So everybody left me alone. And then, you know, got a group of friends, got too many friends, and then failed all my exams, got into my first relationship, rushed ahead, and was trying to just kind of like change as much of the circumstances of my life as I can, and ultimately never really deal with what was going on inside, which backfired for me at 24. And I had what I called a quarter life crisis. Broke up with my girlfriend who'd become my wife. I was in a big old rush to get on with my life. You see, I got married at 21. But had 2 kids from that marriage, and then ended up kind of like floating around in different relationships, and ended up in a really toxic relationship for a year. In this toxic relationship, I ended up like away from all of my family I was alienated from, all of my friends I was alienated from. I burnt so many bridges. I started using alcohol and drugs as a coping mechanism. Food was the coping mechanism when I was a kid, alcohol and drugs in my 20s. And then the depression really came back, like to the point of hallucinations and psychosis, to the point of beginning to self-harm. And then after breaking up with that person, and then looking around and think, I was presented with this picture of V Festival 2008. This is in 2009. It said, you know, Facebook was like 1 year ago today. And there's a picture of me the previous year with all my friends, with my first wife, like just in a field having fun. And then this was in August 2009. I was sat in this position. I got to the point of not being able to look after my kids. I was so depressed that at the ages of 4 and 2, they were tucking me up on the couch and like looking after me while I sobbed in front of the TV. And I looked at that, and I wasn't speaking to any of my family. I wasn't speaking to any of the friends in that picture. I had my kids, and all I thought was that I was the most useless piece of crap in the world, that I couldn't even look after these kids. So I tried to take my own life. And something I'm extremely happy to have failed at. I must have phoned my mum and tried to say goodbye or something. Next thing I know, my mum turns up at the house with an ambulance and the police. The police basically tell me I can either go in the ambulance peacefully or they'll arrest me, and I can go in the police car. So I chose the ambulance. And then when I get to the hospital, my mum gives me the whole, you know, didn't you think about what everybody else, didn't you? And trust me, that is not the right thing to say to anyone in that situation. Yes, I did think of everyone else. I thought everyone else would be better off without me. And so I ran away from the hospital, and then ended up on the doorstep of like my best friend, who at that point wasn't speaking to me. He was one of the people that I'd driven a wedge in between by being in this relationship. And I just burst out crying on his doorstep, and I'm just like, look, I know we're not speaking, but I really, really need you. And he took me back to the hospital, helped me kind of get home that night, and then took me out to see. I should remember this, because it was either Inglourious Bastards or Man of Steel. Someone else checked which times these two came out, and one of them lines up with the August 2009, and the other one doesn't. So whichever one was out in August 2009, but he treated me like a normal human. Now, I'd love to say that was the turning point, but it wasn't. I was still thinking of ways to kind of go back and make another attempt. And at the time, I'd basically, Netflix was sending you videos through the post. So like DVDs through the post, videos, that's going back even further. And I decided, because you're suffering from depression, what did they tell you to do? Get a new hobby. So I decided to learn French as my new hobby. And I'd ordered a bunch of French films off of Netflix. And this film called The Diving Bell and the Butterfly came through in the post. And I was sat there just trying to pass the time, basically. And I put this film on. And it's a true story about a guy with locked-in syndrome, where he could only communicate by blinking. And one of his nurses had figured out a way to have him blink in correspondence to the alphabet, kind of like Morse code. And they'd figured out a way to get him to write a book. And this film was the adaptation of that book. And there's this scene, it kind of like, I don't know, I have no idea what my emotional reaction is going to be to this now, because every time I tell this part of the story, it changes. But there's this scene where he's on the beach with the kids. They've given him permission to be out of the hospital, but he can't move. He's in the wheelchair. He's attached to all these pipes and tubes and monitors and everything. And he can just watch his kids on the beach. And he can't interact with them at all. And the line that came up was, I realized that even a shadow, even a sliver of a dad is still a dad. There we go. That's what's happening today. And that line made me kind of go, I'd gone from thinking that the only way my kids were ever going to have a good dad was for me to get out of the way and let some other better guy emerge, you know? Mm-hmm. And that's true. I needed to get out of the way and let some other guy emerge, but not physically. I needed to get out of my own way mentally, of thinking that this is it. It's always going to be this way. It's all downhill. There's no way I can ever get back. And I remember really clearly having this thought in my head saying that man could be me. And I spent the next sort of 2 years developing myself for my kids to start off with. Got in a new relationship, spent a few years developing myself for my wife, well, my partner at the time, who's now my wife. And then somewhere along the line realized, well, I developed myself for my clients as well, because I became a personal trainer. And then I realized, hang on a minute, there's one person I've not developed myself for here, and that's me. And it's the most obvious thing in the world that I'd spent my entire life looking for self-esteem, that I'd looked for other people to approve of me, of other people to acknowledge me, other people to make me feel worthy. And the one person that had never told me that I'd done a good job was me. I'd not given myself that credit. So about 4 or 5 years ago, I kind of finally realized this and started to talk to myself like I would do someone I loved. And, you know, from there moved into, as I was a personal trainer, became much more obsessed with the mental health side of things. When I started sharing my story, it was originally just to connect with people. I was never intending to get into this line of work. And I was doing a nutrition degree at the time. And on the nutrition degree was a bunch of modules on psychology and how to get a person to change their habits. And, you know, it's not just about telling them what to eat. It's about getting them to be able to eat it. It's not just about telling people how to exercise. And I basically took to that like a duck to water. And everyone in the rest of the class, the first thing I was bullied for in high school, ironically, was standing up and putting my hand up and knowing the answers to questions. And now as an adult, I'd stand up, know the answers to questions, and everyone else in the class kind of liked it. You know, they were like, oh, actually, when we do one-to-one, like demonstrations, I want to work with Dave. And I remember this, I still have my self-esteem issues. I was still looking for a father figure, you know, at this point. And the examiner turned around to me and said, if you don't do something with this, it'd be an absolute sin. And I was like, okay, that's kind of like the validation I never got from my own dad. And I started working in that line, originally on habit change, but more and more people became interested in the mental health side of things. So I got additional qualifications to be able to help me to coach in mental health. And now I'm as I say, you know, I've gone from getting beat up for putting my hand up in class to getting awarded by the Prime Minister for standing up in front of class. I think that's come to a nice full circle. But yeah, like literally over the next few weeks, I'm working on something with the NHS in the northwest of the UK to put in place an education program for kids in schools as well.
That's
to help
amazing.
them. Yeah. And yeah, it's just kind of been pushed for approval with Public Health England last week. So I'm kind of sat here at the minute, trying to find out what it's going to turn into. So yeah, hopefully that wasn't too long. I figured I'd give you the whole thing.
No, it's absolutely not. For me, it was more like I have 20 questions now and I need to remember them.
Yeah, that story That story was amazing. I mean, that you know, that's a long journey. And a lot of people, you know, they'll look at you and they'll be like, oh, you know, this guy's got it all together. And you know, they may think in their mind, yeah, he's been through some struggles. But when you lay out a story like that, you know, it really puts emphasis on, you know, how many times that you've, you know, got knocked down and gotten back up, and how, you know, the whole time your goal wasn't, you know, mental health, that you had other things in mind, and it just kind of led to that organically, you know, once you started taking care of yourself and being that man that you wanted to be. You know, I can relate. You know, my father left when I was young, and my whole when I had kids, I have 3 kids, 2 of which are adults now. Which, how old are your kids, Dave?
16 and 14.
16 and 14. So I'm going to tell you from experience, and you know, one of the self-esteem things, you know, you're not sure if you're doing things right, or, you know, things like that. One of the biggest wins you're going to have, you know, when your kids become adults and you get to see them from the outside looking in, or you hear from a third party of how good a person they are. That right there is one of the best feelings in the world, and that'll put you on cloud 9 when you get with there. And I have no doubt that you will. You're almost there. I have 22 next month, 21 and 15 are the ages of my kids, and having them really turn things around for me. As far as the path that I was going down, I was going down a pretty rough path, and that kind of turned things around for me. But no, that story was amazing. Mizzi, I have a question for you that might be able to help me out, unless Mizzi has one. I know she's waiting to kick one out, so I'm gonna let her go first.
No, go. I can't
Oh,
wait.
you want to hear? So I do have a question. So, I mean, I struggled with some mental health stuff when I was younger, but then there wasn't any resources to do anything about it. I do have ADD, but I've got a firm grasp on my mental health, or I like to think that I do. I'm very positive, upbeat person, and I have a gift to genuinely not care what other people think when it comes to thinking about me negatively most of the time. Now, the question I have is, if you have a spouse that does, like my wife, on the other hand, nothing serious, social anxiety. Like if we go to Walmart and she's got somebody pushing a cart behind her, she think that person wants her to move, and she gets nervous about things like that, you know. And my question is this: what advice would you give somebody that is the spouse of somebody that might have some things like that, to better help their spouse and relate to it? Because to me, you know, at first when me and my wife, you know, first when I you know, I used to always think, you know, why can't you just not pay attention to that, or don't worry what those people are thinking? You know, that was kind of my set, you know, and my mindset was naive. Just, hey, don't worry about what they're thinking. Who cares what they think? You pick your spaghetti sauce and take all the time you want. They can go around, you know. But she obviously, you know, can't shut that part off, and I've adapted to it. You know, we've been married for 13 years, so what is something you would tell a spouse that may not have been able to adapt just yet, on what they could do, some things that they could do to help them out and help their spouse out?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there's two main points. Number one is get the person to focus on what they want rather than what they don't want. So the second you tell someone not to think about something, they think about it more. We've seen it a million times in films. Don't look down. You know, we see a sign on a wall, don't touch wet paint, and we're like, ooh, I like stroking walls. You know, don't think about it, makes you think about it. So instead of that, I say get the person to focus on what they do want. So they want to focus on, like, you know, she's probably thinking something like, I just don't want to panic, or I just don't want to get into this situation. Now, the second you think about what situation you don't want to get into, you think about the situation, and the theater of the mind, basically whatever we play up here, we feel the emotions that go with it. That's why sometimes a bad memory will come up and we'll feel sad. Sometimes when we look to something that could potentially go wrong in the future, it doesn't matter if that thing hasn't happened and may never happen, we're seeing it, and as a result we're reacting to it. So when we tell someone don't such and such, if you say, well, let's just put it this way: whatever you do, don't think about a purple elephant.
Yep.
Yeah, there we go. So and
it's about what you focus on, right?
Yeah,
so it's
exactly.
Like I watched the deal where a guy said, have you ever watched a downhill skier whipping through trees? He is the way that he does that, he's not thinking about don't hit a tree, don't hit a tree, don't hit a tree. Those are the obstacles. He's thinking about stay on the path, stay on the path, stay on the path.
Yeah.
So all he sees is the path, and he doesn't see the obstacles of trees. So it's something kind of like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So for your wife or for anyone else's partner, it's focus on what you actually do want. Funnily enough, I wish I'd been able to get my wife in to answer this question, because I'm the anxious one and she's not. So she's a social butterfly and I actually have social anxiety, which is ironic and hilarious given the fact that I talk to everybody online, but face to face, it's taken some, and that goes into what the second part of the answer is. It's something called graded exposure therapy, which is basically you expose to a situation and then that is gradually more difficult than the last one. Now it needs to be, I always forget the name of it. It's called like your zone of proximal something. It's to do with your comfort zones. And basically we've got our comfort zone, which is where we're happy right now. So she might be much more happy shopping online, right? And actually things like shopping online, things like, you know, self-service checkouts or gas stations where you can pay at the pump, all of these things have actually made social anxiety a lot easier to have, because it's easier for the person to have it because they don't actually have to go and get in those situations. But because they're not in those situations, we're not practicing being in those situations. So like, that's what a lot of people might be experiencing right now, is the fact that for the last 15 months, we've not had to be in those situations. You may have always kind of felt, oh, it's a little bit difficult going out. And some people might have thought, it's really been great this last year, not having to go anywhere, and maybe even dread going back to it. Now that's kind of okay if you and your partner are both in the same boat and neither of you really want to have a social life, and that's cool. That's not, you know, that's not me saying that one way is right and the other way isn't, but it's a case of what if that difference is there. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting that I suppose if you were to kind of always just say to your partner, I'll tell you what, I'll actually do the shopping because this is too traumatic for you. I can see you're not uncomfortable. There's no need to put you through that. Chances are what would happen is their comfort zone would shrink even more. There'll be something else that kind of, and there's actually one of the animations that you mentioned before talks about this. You know, my mum's the one I throw under the bus on this one, because she used to not like driving on a motorway. So she'd always get her friends to drive when she was on a motorway. And then she started getting her friends to just take her a little bit more locally. And by the end of it, her car is now sat on our driveway and has been for 2 years. It's like she hasn't used it. And it's like, so, and she's got absolutely no desire to use it whatsoever, because over time you lose the sharpness of those skills. The opposite is true as well. But if you put a person into a truly traumatic situation, what happens is they go into that fight, flight, or freeze mode. So if you were to kind of like, you know, take your wife to Walmart on Black Friday, that probably wouldn't be the best idea. But with her at that point, it's like, okay, you know, you just say to her, look, right, you know, let's stand to one side together. Let's stand to one side together. Look at the spaghetti sauce, like you said before, and let this person pass, and then reassure that was okay, wasn't it? Like, you know, that was okay for that person to pass. You know, they weren't gonna, like, they're not trying to crash into you. It's like, because if her mind's thinking they're gonna crash into me, that's it, you're automatically kind of bracing for that. Now your body language tells your mind that this is definitely going to happen, and the whole thing goes in a great big circle. So for her, it's like, okay, let's go on a slightly less busy day just to get comfortable with that. Then we'll go, you know, midday on a Saturday or whatever. I don't know when the popular times are at the stores over by you. I wouldn't even go to the stores on a weekend over here. Not because of anxiety, just because I really can't be bothered. but like you basically. And did you have the show The Weakest Link over in the States?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, you know, like on The Weakest Link, they go like the questions get progressively more and more reward attached to them. But if you fail a question, you lose more, unless you've said bank. It's about taking the exposure, getting outside your comfort zone, and then going and chilling for a little bit. You know, it's like, okay, we'll have a breather, we'll have a little coffee, and we'll calm down, and realize and taking the moment to bank it and say that this is okay. Because if a person goes and keeps on going for the $1,000 question that day, and they keep on going, oh, actually, I got a little bit better with that, I'm feeling motivated now, and all the rest of it. Then they might get there really, really quickly. But obviously, the further they go with it, the more the chance is of something coming along that proper freaks the person out. And then they feel like they're
knocks them back down.
Yeah, exactly. So it's about a combination. Like, think of it like training a muscle. You don't just train a muscle by pumping iron 100% of the time, you know. It's like you do the weight, you rest, you have a day off, you don't train that muscle group again straight away, whatever it might be. You work and recover. And it's the same here. Is the work slightly different? We put ourselves in the situations, but the recovery then, and getting her as well to congratulate herself. That's big. because again,
it's not going to be easy either.
Like, well, it's like you say to her, "I'm proud of you," and but it's like you being proud of her is a nice little kind of like a nice little hit, but it doesn't last. And if you say to her, "I want you to be," are you proud of yourself for that too? Now, if she beats herself up about it and says, "Oh, it's stupid, I should just be able to do this all the time," or whatever, then that's like the opposite of banking it right. I call it baby steps and happy dances. We do the baby step and we do the happy dance, which can actually be an actual happy dance if you want it to be. I do them, but you have to celebrate it, because we want instant gratification. And if we put our efforts down, if you kind of like, turn around and say, "Oh, we've got all these streams to do, but we've only done one of them, big whoop," it's like, it kind of makes you feel bad about what you've done, rather than, "Yeah, we've got one of them done and I'm feeling good about it and I can't wait to go into the next one." If we attach, if she's constantly attaching, like, going home, and when it's the kind of post-game debrief, she's there saying, "Oh, that was really terrible and I couldn't stand it," and all the rest of it, instead of saying, "You know what, I'm proud of myself for the fact that I did that today, because that was difficult, but I did it."
Got it done. Yeah.
I would like to ask something about you being being diagnosed with bipolar,
Okay.
because I think not many people, if you're not connected to anyone who has it, know actually what it is. So what are, from your point of view, some false beliefs that are out there, you would like to talk about?
Okay. So there's two. Well, apparently, someone mentioned bipolar 3 to me the other day, and I've literally never heard of it. Yeah. But as far as I know, there's bipolar 1 and 2. I'm lucky to have bipolar 2. And basically, bipolar is a basically the highs and lows of our moods are greater than pretty much most people, with the exception of people with borderline personality disorder. So if everyone else's moods are on a 0 to 10 or a 1 to 10, ours are on like a -5 to 15. With bipolar, you generally speaking, you cycle between them, and it's not a sudden change, but it can be, which is something called rapid cycling. There's now the big misconception, and this is something that I was brought up on, because it was called manic depression when in the mid 90s when I was diagnosed. But the concept of it being bipolar suggests that you're either here or there, right? And that's it. You're either all the way up, which is referred to as mania, or an elevated mood, which is the manic part, or you're all the way down here, which is depressed or a lower mood. And generally, because I subscribed to that when I was a kid, I really, like, we filter out so much that doesn't fit with what our view of the world is. And my view of the world is that I'm either here or I'm here. So I'd filter out the days where I was feeling anything in between. And when I'm here, there's this big misconception that it's always going to be like this. And then when I was up here at the top, there was this big misconception that this is going to come crashing down and I'll be feeling like depressed again. So the whole thought process around it essentially feeds you towards thinking and feeling like you spend most of your time in depression. And the funny thing is that I tell other people I have bipolar disorder because that's easy for conversation. But the belief I hold in my head now is I'm susceptible to the symptoms of bipolar disorder, because if you have a cold or you have the flu, it means you're symptomatic of the flu or right now. Whereas if you have bipolar disorder, you're not always symptomatic. So I say to myself, I'm susceptible to both depression and mania. And since making that distinction, which I was taught through cognitive behavioral therapy, since making that distinction, I've started appreciating the bits in the middle. And I can usually tell you roughly where I am. I'm about 65% right now. I'm closer to elevated than deflated, which is good. Interviews can often take me up, which is good, apart from the fact that when I do them on Saturday or Sunday nights, then I don't sleep. But yeah, so that's kind of, now bipolar 1 is a lot more severe than bipolar 2, and that doesn't diminish what a person with bipolar 2 would experience. Mm-hmm. But generally speaking, the periods of mania are much longer and can often be completely out of control. So like, I'm most of the time aware of what I'm doing when I'm in a manic state. And a manic state as well, people seem to think of them as being super fun, and some of them are. That is true. Some manic states are fun. I like the creativity that comes with it. I like the energy that comes with it. But I also don't like the fact that I'm a much more risk-taking person when I'm there. So I will, like back in the day, I would drive cars in more dangerous ways, or when I was on holiday in Thailand, I signed up for a fight that I wasn't ready for. Or there's a lot more risk-taking, and I'm not a particularly I don't take too many risks normally. Impulsive purchases can happen as well, sometimes at the top, sometimes at the bottom, because you think that's going to kind of help you out of the rut, really.
Do you medicate for
not at present. So I my history of medication was quite bizarre, because I got put on mood stabilizer, which is the more appropriate form for bipolar. You shouldn't really put a bipolar on antidepressants, because it can actually lead to more psychosis in some cases. I was put on mood stabilizers for a lot when I was young, took myself off them. Don't ever do that. Don't ever change your medication without your doctor's approval, like ever. I had like the worst 2 weeks of my life when that happened, because I was fed up of feeling numb. Then when I was around the time of being suicidal, I was put back on medication, but I was put on antidepressants, which led to that was the partly in what actually they think at least led to the psychosis, and then contributed towards the suicide attempt, because I'd had suicidal ideations before that, but I'd never really planned or attempted, and they were much stronger. And then I got took off those, placed back on mood stabilizers, and then again,
sorry quick, did that happen because they diagnosed you wrong? Because I was a little bit confused about the part that you said when you were 14, you got diagnosed with bipolar, but they didn't tell you it is bipolar. And I think when you're like 24 or something, then they told you that it's bipolar too, right?
No, so they told it's even more confusing than that. They told me at 14.
I'm trying here.
It's okay. They told me at 14. Then when I before the suicide attempt, I'd started self-harming, and I got placed under what's called a crisis team. And the crisis team, basically, they act a lot more urgently than doctors. So they put me on antidepressants, and then had me under kind of, I would have a visitor every single day for about a month. Different visitor each day. Only saw the same couple of people 2 or 3 times at most over that month. And then that was when the suicide attempt happened after that. And then my doctor called me in and basically told me that because I am bipolar, that I shouldn't have been on that medication. So that was, so then I went through the whole psychiatric process again and had the bipolar disorder confirmed. And this is where it gets really, really weird. Then again, after a few years, I took myself off medication again, really shouldn't have done it. Had a really bad kind of meltdown in that period. Smashed up my kitchen, lots of things, felt like the most worthless piece of crap on the face of the planet, and then was fine, because that was in the midst of me trying everything else.
What would you tell yourself right now from the perspective of like 20 or I don't know how many years later? If you could talk to yourself then, what would you have told yourself?
It's funny, because I'm a big believer in the fact that, like, if all of this hadn't happened in the order it did, I wouldn't have the life I've got now. So, right. And like, as much as part of me is like, oh, you shouldn't have rushed into that first marriage, but I'm like, there's no way I'd give up my kids for anything. So, and also, this is one of the rare benefits of everything I've been through and experienced, is the fact that quite often, like what Deadeye said before, a lot of people might look at me and say, you've got it all together and all the rest of it, is people don't take, in this line of business, people don't take people seriously that haven't been through stuff, which is a shame, really, because there are some amazing practitioners out there that have never been through stuff, but they've just been super passionate about the human mind. But it's kind of like, it gives me a level of empathy that I don't know many people with the same, you know, it's, so the only thing, there's two things I would tell my younger self. One is it's going to work out. It's not always going to be like this, you know? And because I think just having that little bit of extra hope throughout the whole thing. And the second part of it is, you know, develop some patience, because it's written on my notice board over there. I'm one of the most impatient people on the face of the planet. When something good happens, I'm like, this is it. I've done it now. I've made it. Like, you know, this one YouTube video blows up and I'm like, that's it. I'm going to be helping the whole world. And I still kind of like that. I said to my wife, it makes me very, very vulnerable thinking like that, because it never ends up being the one, you know, what hasn't done so far. And I'm like, I'm going to keep on believing that every time it happens. And I don't care if it makes me vulnerable to have a low mood afterwards. But it's like, yeah, so that's the whole thing, is I tell myself it's going to be okay. It's going to work out. I know you're not able to see it now, but you get through all of this, because there were a lot of periods where I just thought I wasn't going to.
How did you get up from the couch? Like, how did you get up from this, you know, being, I think you said your emotion was fear, right? That's why you basically couldn't get out of your routines and habits. I
wouldn't call it fear. I would call it feeling useless, feeling pathetic, feeling like I had nothing to give. That was kind of what kept me on that couch. It's an interesting thing, because like, there's the expression, don't compare yourself to anyone else, just compare yourself to who you were yesterday. I love that expression for a person that's on the way up. It's a great expression for anyone that's on the way up. For anyone who's on the way down, if you compare yourself to who you were yesterday, there's the odd person that goes, okay, I was doing well, I can get back there. But most of us turn around and go, because this is the thing, I wasn't able to cook for my kids. I wasn't able to clean for my kids. I wasn't able to, you know, I basically, their school uniform, I had two versions of it, so that, because they were with me overnight 2 nights, I'd had 2 versions of it so that I wouldn't have to wash it. Like, and then I'd basically send it back with them to their mums. I was taking them out for dinner, so that to a place with a soft play area, so that they could, so that someone else was feeding them, like, you know, and their entertainment was taken care of. Like, they were doing soft play, and I was just, now this isn't because I'm lazy. This isn't because I didn't physically know how to do any of those things. This is because I felt physically incapable of doing them. 6 months previous, I could have done all that stuff. I'm a pretty decent cook.
You had more weight on as well, right? You said you had weight issues.
That was sort of somewhere in the middle. Like, so I had weight issues up until during my quarter life crisis, when everything went to pot. That was the point that I was like, right, I'm looking after my health now. And I didn't really look after my health. I got skinny, and that wasn't not in a very healthy way either. So I just looked after my health in a different way, you know. And that was where I felt like the most ineffective piece of crap on the face of the planet. I felt like I had nothing to give. And that's another part of the story that like last year on Suicide Awareness Day, I put out a video. This because it was 11 years last year. It'll be 12 in August since I did that. And it's like, okay, I thought I had nothing left to give. Not thought, sorry, that's the wrong word. Believed. I 100% believed that I had nothing left to give. And I'm only just getting started with what I've got left to give now. And that was the shift, you know, like the shift in mindset for me was, okay, there's a lovely question that I like to get people to change. We all ask, why can't I do this? Why can't I look after my kids? Why can't I cook for them? Why can't I? And when you ask yourself, why can't I? You will always see the reasons why you can't. We're very specific creatures. We love to answer the specific question. You know, if someone's on a diet and you say, what healthy thing are you going to have for your dinner tonight? They might say, I'm going to have a chicken salad with some quinoa, you know? But then if you say to that same person, but what do you want for dinner tonight? They'll be like, I want pizza. You know, it's like, so we're very specific in the words. So if we ask ourselves, why can't I? My brain would have come back saying, you're lazy, you're a sack of crap, whatever, you know, you've made all these mistakes. And most people as well follow that question up with, what's wrong with me? And I asked myself that a bunch of times. And the problem with that question is you're only going to get 3 types of answers back from what's wrong with me. If I asked one of you two what's wrong with me, you'd probably be like, you know, Dave, you're a good presenter. We like this about you. And you'd tell me some nice things about me. But when we ask ourselves that question, we're not coming back with those kind of answers. We're coming back with everything bad we've ever thought about ourselves, everything bad that anyone else has ever said about us. And then the third one is everything bad that no one else has ever said about us, but we know that they're thinking it. And if you imagine you're now ganged up on in your head by 3 groups of trolls, if you already felt bad before, asking yourself that question is going to make you feel 1,000,000 times worse. And the way I shifted that round was, instead of saying, why can't I look after my kids? I said, how could I look after my kids? It's a couple of words different, that's all. But the outcome, the questions, the answers that come up from that question, they are solutions. And by solutions, sometimes it's one solution. And when you ask yourself, why can't I? 10 reasons I can't. How could I? 1 reason I can. And even in that situation, we'll sit there and go, ooh, but there's all these reasons I can't. And there's only one way that I could. You only need one way. That one way was, I'm going to wash my kids' clothes today.
Yeah.
That one way was, I'm going to make sure that they're into school on time. That one way was, when they're at school, I'm going to have a shower. You know, like, because I've not showered for days at this point. Then it was, I'm going to go and get a gym membership. Then it was, if I told you all of them at the same time, it's 1,000,000 steps. But I wasn't dealing.
I see. Yeah, it's breaking down the steps first. The smaller, the better, I guess, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And
it's focusing on the path and not the obstacles.
Yeah, 100%.
We have 2 more donos in here. Thank you so much.
Yeah, we saw that.
Did I?
Pratty and Goliath, right?
Yes. Thank you so much, guys. Much appreciated. I wanted to ask you something. What was it? I lost my brain.
Ask away.
I lost my mind.
Going back to some of the stuff David said about, and something I had said earlier about a lot of people see where people are and don't understand the path they took to get there. And there's a short deal that sums that up that I saw one time, and I'm not going to use the language that was in it, but it says somebody sees a pregnant woman and they always want to tell her congratulations, but nobody asks her how many times she got screwed to get there. And so, that's a nice little analogy that I like when you see somebody like that, like you, just like on one of mine's videos, they say, you never know or I believe it might've been one of yours, Dave, where it says you never know what somebody else is currently going through, just the same way you never know what somebody has already been through to get where they're at. And I think that is very important. I think one of the biggest things is the golden rule. That's something that my grandfather instilled in me when I was younger. And it reminds me of your karma video that you have on your YouTube channel, the animated one, where, if you're doing nice things for people, or you recognize somebody needs help and you're helping them out, but you're expecting instant gratification and something in return, or you're expecting, oh well, I helped this guy today, tomorrow something good is bound to happen. It's just that golden rule: do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And those ripples are going, you never know, somebody that you help on the side of the road 3 months later could help your mother on the side of the road, and that positively impacts you and maybe take something off of you. And that was something that it all kind of ties in together. One, you don't know what somebody else is going through currently, but you also don't know what somebody else has gone through to get where they're at. It's there's always a journey behind it.
Yeah.
And did you think of what you were going to ask there, Mizzi?
Yeah, there was a question for you in chat. That's what I wanted to say, actually. Stevie here for you guys. Stevie XO. All right.
Let's see, which one is it?
It's she said,
knowing what you know through your own experience. Okay. How would you approach or support your children if you saw something in them, or what would you do to help them bring them up with talking about their feelings? So now I am not a mental health professional, so I'm going to answer this first, and then I can let Dave tell me if I'm doing something wrong. What I've always done, when I grew up, my mom was the main one that was there. So I felt like I could be pretty open with her. I had a slew of stepdads and stuff. And so I got instilled with the mindset, rub dirt on it, man up, you're the rock, your feelings don't matter. It was never said that your feelings don't matter, but it was just presented in that way, and not having a father, it was different for me, because a lot of guys that are fathers had fathers, and so however their father treated them growing up will resonate with their kids. But I just thought, I didn't have one, I want to be the best one that I can be. And even though where I live is very is a lot of is very narrow minded as far as sexuality and race and things like that, I was lucky enough to recognize people for who they are. And so when I ever recognize that my kids might have a problem or might have an issue with something, one of the key things is they know they can always be open with us without any kind of judgment whatsoever. And I've always thought that was real important, because I felt like the biggest hurdle that I would face is not them so much having a problem as much as me not knowing about it, because they would be uncomfortable not talking to me about it. So the first step that I always made was like, look, no matter what it is, and I'm not gonna lie, sometimes your kids are gonna come to you with stuff and your first thought is gonna be, but at the same, you've got to step back and you've got to try to put yourself in their shoes, go back to when you were younger, and then approach it, with a proper response, which mines are always based on morals, right and wrong and things like that, and then handle it that way. But the main advice that I can give is be open and never be judgmental. It would be my advice.
Yeah, that's awesome. For me,
that's nice.
It's spot on. I would echo so much of that, and being open and reassuring them, because kids, like, we all did it. We all heard things that weren't said, and when something was said, I call it hearing between the lines. It's the same as reading between the lines. What we heard when the dad or whatever said, they were too busy on a Sunday, we heard that we're not good enough or whatever it might be. And with literally hundreds of people I've worked with that have that core belief of feeling like they're not good enough, and it's often down to the simple things that our parents done. Like, sometimes it's down to obviously quite severe things that our parents done. But that's why there's a video on my there's actually a video on my YouTube channel called You Are Enough, and it was that was written for my kids. I wrote that for them, it's funny because when you've been suicidal in the past, I wrote it saying, if I was to disappear tomorrow, and I meant if aliens had plucked me off the face of the planet or something. I didn't mean I was suicidal, but I was like, if I was to disappear tomorrow, this is what I want my kids to know. And the number of people that messaged me off the back of that saying, you're safe, aren't you? It's like, and I'm like, no, I'd watched a Gary V video, and it was like, what would you want the message to be if you knew that you could only give one more message? And I was like, right, this is it. And it starts off with the phrase, you are enough. You are enough. It's important that we start with that.
There's another interesting exercise I saw about the same topic. It's like, imagine you are on your own grave and your parents are talking about you, your best friend, let's say your wife, and somebody from work. What would they say about you?
Yeah.
And I love this. I don't know. It was not terrifying for me. It was more like,
Yeah. I like to ask myself that if someone told me I was going to die tomorrow, what would I regret not doing? Mm-hmm. And that gives you an indication if there's some stuff that I should probably do, because you're not going to regret not doing the dishes. You're going to regret kind of not doing something bigger than that. I say really old. It's probably only about 20 years old or something. So there's a poem called Dust If You Must. And it's about it's basically dust if you must, but wouldn't it be better to? And it talks about loads of different activities you could do. And, it's quite whimsical and quite lighthearted, but their way of kind of talking about death and stuff. But ultimately, that phrase, you are enough, it was like I'd been made to feel invisible by my dad and my brother when I was a kid. They literally used to pretend I was invisible. That led to me, I think that was kind of like the starting point of my self-esteem issues. But the thing is, we can all have that thing where if you used to say, well, what did I need to do to be good enough for my parents? Or what do I need to be good enough to be good enough for my partner or for work or whatever it might be? And if I was to ask myself that question like 5 years ago, I'd be like, in order to be good enough for my mum, I need to do this. And I've picked all of that up from, you know, like have the house tidy would probably be one of them, and I am not a tidy person. But my mom always would, like, you know, make comments when if I had one of the couch cushions on the floor and was lying on the floor watching TV or whatever, we'd get in fights over it. So in my head, I'm like, okay, to be good enough for mum, I need to do this. I also need to have my homework. I also need to be quiet. I also need to not bug her when she's working, and blah blah blah. We have this list, and then it's like, okay, what do my kids need to do to be good enough for me? They just are. And they are two very, very different human beings. Like they, you know, no two are like come out the same, you know. They are, one of them's the most analytical, logical person on the face of the planet, was trying to beat me at poker last night, you know, nearly beat me at chess the other day, like literally like tries to do that kind of stuff. The other one is more in touch with his emotions, more tactile, more loving, and they're just completely different. But I love them both equally. And neither of them needs to do anything to be good enough other than just be themselves. So that was the advice, is tell them that, because every single one of us sits there and thinks based on, like, if I want them to have their rooms tidy. I want them to be ready on time for school. I want them, like, one of them's doing his end of high school exams right now. He finishes high school like this week. And I wanted him to do all that studying. If he didn't do all of it, he'd still be good enough. That's not what it takes for him to be good enough. So I want him to know that in my eyes, he is and will always be good enough. I want his, you know, my other son to know that in my, like, no matter how different they are, no matter, because again, when there's two siblings, if you praise something that's present in one of them that isn't present in the other one will unconsciously go, oh, but I've not got that. So does that mean that they don't love me as much? No. So I go a little bit all in on that. You know, I tell them that they are enough. I tell them that they're amazing. I wrote that poem for them. I mean, 150,000 people have seen it since then, but like, I realized that I needed to hear this poem, and then I thought, well, because I burst out into tears the first time I read it, and I'm like, I needed that from my dad, and then I was like, I wonder if there's other people out there that need it too. But also, if you ever watch it, you'll find it's one of the only ones in my videos that I'm not on camera. It's all stock footage because I just...
Can you send that to me after the show? Then I will. I would like to post it in our Discord for sure.
Yeah.
I think another one, Stevie, to watch would be The Balance, the animated one on Dave's channel, Balance, which talks about, you know, balancing out work and...
Is this why I've had all these extra views this weekend?
and family life and stuff like that.
Salon, can you... I don't know if you can, but wait. Let me just link your YouTube channel quick in here.
It's down there in the animated series. It's right there. It's one of the first ones you'll see. It's called Balance, and it is, you know, I watched it, and that's something, you know, being a father of 3, and like you said, each one of them is very different, so they're all into different stuff, has me going all the time. And then, you know, jobs and hobbies and things like that, and balancing it. I really... I kind of defaulted to that approach because I have ADD. And so it's one of those deals where I focus on a task and to almost to completion, you know, like, and if I don't, it'll drive me crazy. But so I've adopted that kind of balance, you know, rather than evening and out, you know, throughout the day and making it balance, you know, being more of a seesaw and handling this. And then you can devote, you know, especially with ADD, like if I was to stop work and go handle family business, while I was in family business, I would be thinking about work. And then when I went back to work, while I was at work, I'd be thinking about, oh, well, I cut family business off short, you know, and that's how my mind would work. And I was lucky enough to be able to navigate that, you know, without having that out there, but definitely watch that. And we also got another dono coming in from Android's family. And then Stevie was talking in chat
I didn't even realize that.
Yeah, I believe they threw in, I think it was $10, if I'm not mistaken, or 10 pounds.
Android's
and then we've got
family 10. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much.
To Android's family. Are they in here?
I believe so. I believe they're in here. And then we've got Stevie continuing here with, he feels the children are growing up in a generation where mental health is looked as a fashion label. So it can make those issues seem less and that they aren't real, and see people disregarding them because you do see a lot, people attributing, mental health to things and it being thrown out there quite a bit.
Yeah.
Dave, you said you are doing work now with schools for mental health and for children. How do you address, because she's saying that, and I was, I said it before you even jumped into the stream here with us. I have the feeling like people are getting more and more open about the whole subject, but it's not objective. It's my view. So how do you feel about it?
Yeah, definitely. It's I would say it's getting a lot more open. I feel that in the year in 2019, I probably had a bit of an echo chamber because I was just going to events that I was invited to and everyone wanted to be there, which was a bit bizarre because if you're in those situations, you're like, hey, the stigma's gone. I've not encountered anyone that's stigmatic about mental health for like 2 weeks. And, I have obviously since, and now that I do more things online, you encounter them quite a lot. But yeah, I would say there was the expression that I kind of ran most of my 2020 social media on, which was the expression, not them and us, but all of us, because you have two very kind of strong camps when it comes to mental health. You have the man up and get on with it. It's all in your head. Liver failure is also all in your liver, but we accept that. A broken leg's all in your leg. So what else? Does it matter that it's all in your head? Even if it is, it's not. Mental health actually does have physiological implications on the rest of your body. But there's that camp of it, and then there's the other side of it, which is the kind of it's okay not to be okay camp, which is an important kind of statement, and it's an important kind of place to focus on, because what we're trying to do is we're trying to normalize the idea that more of us, like Stephen Fry said on that video, then 1 in 4, right? 1 in 4 will experience a mental health difficulty. 1 in 4 will report experiencing a mental health difficulty over the next year. Every single one of us has mental health. We just don't all have mental illness. And so I kind of spent a lot of time last year trying to figure out how to communicate between those two groups. And within the quickfire mental health, there's a 10 tips for people, 10 things I wish more people with mental health knew. And there's a 10 tips I wish more people that don't have mental health knew. And there's a lot of work to be done. Like you've just mentioned, one of them then is like, it's when people are using mental health conditions flippantly. It's more like, what is it? I'm using them as an adjective. I'm so OCD right now. It's like, if you can't, like, I'm so OCD right now because I've just organized my desk. It's like, no, you either have OCD. You're not so OCD. You either have OCD or you don't. Yeah. It's like if someone's moods move around, like if their kind of moods move around a lot that day and they're saying, oh, I'm so bipolar. It's like, well, I mean, you actually might be, but it's not to use these things. It is to not to use these things flippantly. One of the things
I have hormones?
Well, yeah, this is one of the things if anyone in chat knows someone, by the way, help me out, because I put it out on Twitter today. I've got a neuroscientist on my podcast on Tuesday, but I want an endocrinologist on next, because I really want to know what the current research is on between hormones and mental health, because
I think you can invite 10 and they will tell you all something different.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I don't know.
Well, that is again the problem is.
I suddenly thought about. Have you ever read from Edgar Tolle, The Power of Now?
I've listened to an audiobook. I've not read it, which is not a good idea if you're driving. That man has got a very calming voice.
I think he is a little bit like Terminator. He's like the Terminator of reading books. And if you would be an American, you would. It sounds so funny because he's from Austria, right? And he's speaking this. He's taking a momentum which takes it feels like 2 minutes or sometimes, right? But it's very interesting. And he's talking on some point about hormones, and I was like, dude, you have no fucking clue, man. You guys, just shut up. No.
Well, but that's why specifically I want an endocrinologist. They have clues about.
Yeah. No, but still a good book. Very interesting, especially when it comes down to, in your mind, you very often you live like in the past or in the future, and it's about focusing on what matters now. And for me, for example, very often when I get stressed about something, I ask myself always one question. It's like, if I imagine, looking at this 20 years ahead and think like, is that important? No, then move on. And it helps me a lot. I don't even know, like I have this, I'm doing this, I think for 20 years now.
Nice.
It helps me a lot with that.
Yeah, I think there's something called, I think it's the 5x5 rule, which is if it's not going to matter in 5 years, don't spend more than 5 minutes on it.
Or 5 seconds.
I think it might be 5 seconds actually. The 5-second rule is if you drop food. Well, there's a Mel Robbins 5-second rule, isn't there? But the 5-second rule is if you drop food on the floor and pick it up within 5 seconds, it's okay to eat.
Exactly. That's what I always tell my kids.
Complete
Did you count to 5?
If you got to 6, you got to put it in the bin.
Exactly.
Yep. Well, you were saying something about, and I like the word you used. Was it flippantly? Yeah. I can relate to Stevie there on that kind of thing, because that does make it scary, because then you get children that see this at like you said, oh, my OCD's kicking up, or because I something sad happened today, I've obviously got depression and things like that, and I've even seen some of that in my youngest son, him thinking that he's got some things that clearly it was a one-day deal or something like that, that because he's real open with us about stuff. So, and it is scary that, like you said, it's fashion labels and things like that, like a lot of times it's be cool, or the group that you're in, it's if you don't have this mental disorder, then, you can't be a part of this group or whatnot, and that even goes to other things, like, where you'll get, a group of kids that maybe their parents abuse them, and then, what they start getting open about it, and one of their friends doesn't have an abusive parent, but they want to kind of fit in, and so they'll be like, oh yeah, well, my parent, so I mean, that overlaps just in about anything, but it is kind of scary. It is kind of scary. How would you, if you run into that situation, Dave, to where your child come to you and they thought that they had a mental illness, that based on your expertise and just the evidence that you have at hand, you felt like they probably didn't, and they were picking it up from an outside source, how would you address that?
I'd talk to them first and see kind of how long it's gone on for. Like, have them explain their feelings without me placing any words in the mouth is quite important. And then I'd literally ask them if they wanted to go and see the doctor about it. I'd actually take them to the doctor if they wanted to, because I think the thing is, I know my stuff, but I'm not perfect, and especially when it comes to your own family, sometimes you often see things like that. One thing that I feel terribly guilty about now is that at the start of high school, my son was being bullied, but when he came and told me how he was being bullied, it was, in comparison, mild in comparison to what I'd experienced in high school. And I, being very kind of stressed out and short-tempered on that day, came and actually said to him, "Oh, that's not bullying," and immediately invalidated his feelings. And that's something that I struggle with to this day, because I was kind of already on the path of becoming what I am now by that stage. So I should have known better than that in that moment. And but the main thing I say about these things actually is, it's not for me to decide. It's not for me to decide whether that person has that issue or not. I'm not a doctor. I'm not capable of diagnosing people. I'm capable of helping people with coping mechanisms once they are diagnosed, or if they think that they've got things. But the thing is, I would never want to be. There's always a chance that it could be, even if it doesn't seem likely. And this is the thing, like, my mods say this to me in my chat, because there's a lot of mental health channels on Twitch out there that they call it trauma dumping. I don't like calling it trauma dumping. I think it's too stigmatic. But they'll have people come in and they'll share a lot of what's happened to them, a lot of what they're experiencing. And a lot of times they'll, some of my mods or other people in chat will be like, this person's lying. And I'm like, look, I would literally rather they were lying and I took them seriously than the off chance that they're telling the truth and I didn't. And I would have the exact same principle with my kids. If even one of my kids, one of my kids actually has been sent home from school due to feeling depressed, feeling suicidal, we've had a really great conversation about it. I encouraged him to basically, I said, it doesn't matter how often it happens. I want you to tell me whenever you feel like that. You're probably going to instinctively think that you don't want to tell me that you're feeling that, because you're probably going to think that I'll worry too much, Norris, but I want you to tell me that whenever you feel like that. And I check in with him regularly, and I asked him if he wanted to see a doctor about it. And he basically said, if it carries on happening, he would see a doctor about it. So we, that's where we are at the minute. And yeah, I'd rather answer the boy who cried wolf to my own embarrassment a million times than for that wolf to actually be there and me not to actually answer. So that's my approach on it.
Let me ask you this. Are you aware of any free resources that might be able to help parents take their kids to diagnose that, because I know here in the States, a therapist is expensive, and if you're worried about, if a parent takes that approach there and says, lets their kid know, hey, if you think it's something serious, we take you to the doctor, and, in the chances that, the child is seeking attention or something like that, that's a hard hit for a parent to take for something that isn't an issue, and
yeah,
not saying
absolutely. I've got it somewhere on a bookmark. Let me find it. There is I'll send it to Mizzi after we're done.
So we'll have that on the GamersWeCare Discord for any of you parents out there that may need that. We'll put that in there.
I think it's Psychology Today, because someone gave me it for Americans earlier, which was earlier, 2 days ago on Thursday. It's where you can Psychology Today, where you can find a therapist and you can find the ones that are working on a sliding scale. For people in the UK, there is something called the Hub of Hope, which is basically you put in your postcode and it tells you what services are available in the area. There is a lot of free services out there, often third party, like independent services or charity services. There is also checkpoint.org, I believe, which is a global site. Checkpoint.org, basically, it's apart from apparently some of the Australian ones, or some of the UK ones are Australian ones. But the thing is, actually, with those helplines, someone told me the other day, the UK helplines will not turn a person away if they're not from the UK. So they'll answer calls to people from other countries. So that's good, but that's checkpoint.org, and basically on that's the sort of equivalent of Hub of Hope, but for global. I think there's like 6 countries in the whole world that aren't on there or something, and you can find what's local to you wherever you happen to be. So yeah, I do understand that in America, but again, within pretty much every state, there are therapists that work on a sliding scale. There are people there, and it's just they're not really well known of, because if you're working on a sliding scale, you've not exactly got a huge advertising budget. It's like it's a little bit one of those situations where it's hard to get known. Most charities, like they don't want to spend their money on advertising, do they? So they rely on, again, third party people to do the word of mouth and all the rest of it. So yeah, there are resources out there. I was really surprised, because how I got into doing the peer support online that I do now is I did peer support face to face. In a gym, we had this thing. I had a private gym hired out for 2 hours a week, where we do an hour of exercise followed by an hour of conversation, basically just peer support. And when I basically announced that, suddenly there was about 15 or 20 different local organizations, even in the tiny little town that I live in, that were all
wait, what's happening here? Wait.
I think you might need to kick out the iPhone now, because we've got
I think it's Teacup here.
Teacups of Doom is an amazing name, by the way.
Yeah, that's right.
But yeah, so what you're saying is there's pretty much resources just about everywhere, especially with that. And what'd you call it? Check.org or
I think it's checkpoint.org. It should be in my search history.
Well, and we'll have it there on the Discord, on the GWC Discord. Mizzi will post that up there for anybody that might be interested in there. We have in chat day club for small groups to kids to talk about their feelings and get things. Oh, that is nice. That is nice.
Right.
Yeah, it's checkpointorg.com, global mental health resources.
You guys hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Sir.
Sweet. Sorry, I just got back from work. I hope
Yeah,
you don't mind me undressing.
I didn't expect you to jump in at all, to be honest, but it's fine.
I'm
we
really
handle it from
sorry.
here. We take it from here.
I'm really sorry. Yeah, like
Wait, you're
work
not
ran
sunny.
late, and I
It's
don't
all good.
mean to.
It's all good.
I don't mean to strip on camera. I mean, it's
How many layers are you wearing?
it's quite rainy, quite cold out there. So I was like, I'm gonna layer up before I go to work, and I feel too warm now. So yeah.
So we
Well,
got
ladies
that.
and gentlemen, Teacups of Doom.
Sorry.
We'll throw a link up to his Twitch stream there.
Really feel like we should have had some sort of saxophone music on or something for that, you know.
I'm gonna tell you, I looked into you a little bit, Teacups. I'm gonna give you a second to introduce yourself, and let everybody.
I'm right back. I'm looking for my kids quick. I'm right back.
All right,
you got this here. You got this.
You lost them.
I heard someone again. I don't know what's up tonight with me. I'm right back.
So I just have one question, Teacups, before here. Am I seeing this right? Is this you in hula skirt bikini on your Twitch there?
So the story behind that is we had a luau at work, and they were like, "Oh, we've got you this costume," and I was like, "All right, cool, yeah, I can get behind that, like a big tiki mask or something." No, it was a plastic bra that cut into my chest so much that I was like left with marks for about 3 days just around my nipples, and a hula skirt. And they were like, "Yeah, do you have any like tan or skin colored trousers?" And I was like, "Do you know, I think I do." I was like,
as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, why don't you have you met Dave Teacups?
I have not. Hello, Dave.
Hello,
Dave
Teacups.
Teacups Dave.
Or is it? Do you prefer of Doom?
You can call me Barbara if you want. I don't mind.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, and what brought you here today. We talked to Android a little bit. I believe you worked with him some. So just tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, and why you got involved with Mind here and these events we got going.
So I'm a small time streamer. I occasionally stream. My work's reopened up, so all my hours have gone mental, and I haven't been able to stream as much. But I've been playing games since I was about 5 years old. I remember playing Lemmings on DOS with my dad way back when. And I'm 32 now, so that's a lot of years of gaming. I know it's I don't look it, but I really am that old.
I'm 39, so I'm right there with you guys.
I got the. Oh, hang on, I'm still wearing my hat. There we go. I got the gray hairs to prove it. But yeah, I got like Android. I've been on the Discords with Android for God, it's got to be like 2 years now or something, maybe a year and a half. And he said, "Do you want to get involved in this?" I was like, "Yeah, absolutely." I thought it was really good. I'm a mental health sufferer myself. I've got like PTSD, memory issues, things like that have all come about from like mental health issues and stuff. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna help out as anywhere I can, and that's what I do.
Awesome. Well, we definitely appreciate it, and we're glad to have you here. So, what do you have coming up? Are you involved in some of the things they got going on as far as the viewer challenges and things like that are coming up here in the next couple of weeks? Or
to be honest, I need to go back over them and have a look. I was signed up to the Apex 1v1s. I've been playing a lot of that recently.
I think they took those out. Due to some logistic things, so they're doing some viewership challenges. So you're going to be involved in some of those viewership challenges that they're doing.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely give him a follow. Check him out. That'll be coming up. We'll have the schedule post over in the GWC Discord that you can check out these upcoming events again to support Mind in the Mental Health Awareness Week. Coming up here with these events, some Apex and some Call of Duty, if I'm not mistaken. And to jump back real quick, what do you have on the horizon, Dave? Do you have anything coming up? I mean, aside from your regular content, do you have anything that's on the agenda that you want people to know about?
Yeah. Well, next month, with me being bipolar, I'm basically just giving everything that comes in through the stream to Bipolar UK next month. Normally we give away like a raffle to we call it the Lucky Submarine, which is basically to one random sub every month. But we're actually giving that to the charity as well next month as well. So that's what we're doing there. The big one for me is in 13 months time, which might seem like a very, very long time in advance to say it. But in February, on the 26th of February, so 26.2, this year just gone. The reason I have this Mind t-shirt is because I hosted a 26.2 hour mental health stream. So I basically had 26 guests on consecutively, called the Mental Health Marathon. So instead of running 26.2 miles, I ran 26.2 interviews, which was awesome. And I survived it. So obviously I run marathons in real life as well. And obviously then I upgraded to an ultra marathon off the back of that. I'm like, okay, how do I go one step further than the mental health marathon? So on the 3rd of June, which is 3/6, I'm doing it for 36 hours, but that's the 3rd of June, 2022. What's this year? We're 2021 now, aren't we? So that's the 3rd of June, 2022. So it might seem like 13 months off, but the mental health marathon I started planning in November 2000. I was about to say 1999. I'm like, no, 2019. So I had the whole of 2020 to plan for it, and get the guests and organize, and still had one or two drop out in the last minute, and I had to kind of
that happens. We had that last week as well, and then managed to get 3 other guests. Like, that's crazy.
So well, that's it really. We were supposed to be doing something with a bunch of other streamers, but the interest dropped off, and I'm just not. I don't like managing. I don't like admin. But we were going to do something called the Hope Train, which we still may do over the summer. Which basically was going to be 10 consecutive days of a raid relay, where all mental health streamers. So basically, a mental health streamer does 6 hours. 4 of us do that every day for 10 days, and then that was supposed to be something and there was a group of us, and we had about 5 or 10 different streamers that were going to do it. We only really need like 8 streamers to kind of pull it off if everyone's prepared to do like 5 shifts, because it'd be for 240 hours or whatever. So if anyone in the chat wants to help me get that one back alive,
that's perfect. Stevie, just matter of fact, just now asked, so my streams are small, but how could I do something that brings in the awareness of men's mental health? And I was gonna say, hey, you can go to these different charities. These different communities are always looking for people to do stuff. And again, I said it right in the beginning, it doesn't matter if it's 1 person or 100. If somebody benefits from anything that you're saying, any advice, any of the resources, any of the links that you give them, if just 1 person, who is struggling, clicks on that link and goes and gets some information or talks to somebody that helps them out, that's a win all day long. I mean, because to you, at face value, that was 1 person, but who is that 1 person going to touch? And then who are they going to, the people that they helped out, who are they going to help out? Again, it goes back to the karma video that Dave put out, the animated video, putting those stones out there with positivity, throwing a stone into a pond, it ripples, and it can affect a lot of people. And those ripples are based on, what you put on them. Is it negative or is it positive? So put that positive out there. And that's what you can do, Stevie, is just every one of your streams, bring it up. If it's something that's important to you and you want to get out there, talk about it, let people know about it, tweet about it, let them know that you're going to be talking about it, and then do it that way.
Yeah. And another thing that you can do with that is bring people on if people within your community have got mental health issues that they're happy to talk about. just bring them on and just have a conversation. Just have a note. You don't have to have any qualifications to talk about mental health. You don't. You have to have qualifications to advise about it, and you're not even allowed to advise about it on Twitter. I am on Twitch. It's against terms of service, so therefore it's all just ideas, not advice. But basically, one of the best ways to actually build your community is to involve your community. You know, like, so you might find, and my friend, there's a guy called the Legendary Jigs, and his story is absolutely phenomenal. He's a guy from America, and he started, you know, he's been doing gaming streams for the last few months, and he started doing mental health streams on a Saturday night, and he just gets, you know, he just gets our friends that we've met through talking about this stuff online on. And he doesn't, like, you know, I've got like this neuroscientist coming on Tuesday, but I've been running a podcast for 4 years, and like it's taken like this. But now I still include, when you include members of your community as well, the rest of your community turn up. It's in fact, more of them probably will turn up for your for that than if you might think to yourself, oh, I'll get some great big guest on, like that's got a published author and written books. There's no connection. There's no connection to your community there. So you utilize the people within your community, and then you can actually be part of normalizing that conversation.
And correct me if I'm wrong here, but I mean, to me, just coming in, and I know, you know, secretly when I've been watching stuff and seeing things, somebody coming on and telling their story, and just hearing somebody else's story that you can relate to can often lift you up and say, you know, well, hey, you know, this guy got through it, or this girl, you know, was able to deal with it, and it wasn't the end of the world. You know, can just hearing those stories can help people out.
Yeah.
Just hearing somebody else's struggles and realizing that, hey, you know, I didn't look at it that way, or I didn't think about it that way, or that never crossed my mind. Now it has crossed their mind. Just like he says, you know, I want none of you right now to think about a pink elephant. Now everybody just thought about a pink elephant. It's on that same premise. You hear something that somebody says that says, oh, I didn't even think about it like that. Now you're thinking about it. Now you're heading down that path.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's the thing. When I first got into speaking, I really wanted to, what I wanted to share with people, I didn't really care about sharing my story. What I wanted to share with people was the new techniques, the things that I'd found, the ways to talk to yourself better, or the ways to build habits. I thought that was going to help people more. And I'd go and speak at conferences. And the thing, like, you know, at the beginning of this today, when we've been talking, I shared my full story. Now, I would go to conferences and you'd have people that, like, you know, neuroscientists, endocrinologists, all sorts of people talking. And then you'd have me, who I considered myself in the middle of all of that because I have a personal story plus experience. And then you get people with just personal stories, and the people with just personal stories, well, that's what they're going to talk about. And the audience would be on the edge of the seat. They'd be the people that at the end, people were going up and approaching and saying, your story helped me so much. They're not approaching, I know with the neuroscientist on Tuesday, it's a little bit more for me, to be honest. I've read a couple of his books and I really like his work. So I'll be there going, just tell me what's happening with my neurotransmitters when my bipolar kicks in, you know, and the rest of the audience might be like, that's interesting, but it doesn't really hit my heartstrings. It doesn't really make me feel anything. And that's the whole thing, is that those stories as well, especially the person's...
but why is it so important that we need emotions connected so there's a click, you know, there's a change?
Yeah.
Why does information not help alone? You know, you like, stop smoking. Stop smoking.
Yeah. It does for some people. It does for people who are very data oriented. Information
I'm not
really
talking
helps.
about the 2%.
There is, and I know it's a small number, but I don't work in absolutes. That's one thing everyone should know about me. And I've just said everyone should know, which is an absolute. But I don't work in absolutes. So it's funny because one of my favorite expressions is we don't guilt ourselves into greatness. Because I have people that just put themselves down, and when we put ourselves down for the fact that we've not achieved something, all it makes us do is feel more shitty, which makes us not achieve the thing even more, and it goes around in a circle. Then there's the odd 2% again that put themselves down and then better themselves as a result of it. So I don't like, I kind of hate the way social media likes to put everything in a nice, neatly wrapped box that says this will work for everyone. And I'm actively against that. So that's why I do actually, if there's an exception to the rule, I annoying to my own detriment sometimes will point out that bloody exception. But But yeah, why is it with emotions? Well, it's always been emotions. You know, it's like it's why we love. There's this process called the hero's journey, which, you know, like every great film or story ever follows the hero's journey. Like Rocky follows it. You know, we actually like the person to think that they're not able to do it and actually refuse it before they go for it. And then when they actually go for it at first, we like to see them have a setback, and we don't like to see them win too easily and all the rest of it. I think there's 12 steps to the hero's journey or something, like, and like every great game has it. You know, someone calls you to action, like, you know, you get the call from Zelda, and you wake up, and then you finally go and get the master sword from the woods eventually, and then that amazing music plays. And it's like, you know, these things all happen, and that's what we connect to. We remember things like that. That's why bad memories come back to haunt us. It's not the data of that bad memory. If you were to kind of take all, and if you were to write it in data-driven language, so it was like, this happened, and then I was feeling, and then this happened logistically, and there was I had some sushi for my dinner, and then, you know, you basically literally kind of did it in a step-by-step what actually happened. No one would really connect with that. Whereas if you kind of weave it in a way where how you felt in that moment, what that one like that whole, what that line, even a shadow, even a sliver of a dad is still a dad, what that meant to me. And if I just said, and I watched a French film, and there was a quote in the French film that helped, do you know, it's like no one's gonna feel anything from that. And that ultimately, especially when it comes to mental health really is about how you feel. It's you know, what the end experience is of mental health, what the person's lived experience is, as each of us sat in these chairs right now, it's how we feel. It's not even the thoughts, it's how the thoughts make us feel. It's not the interactions, it's not the drugs, it's how the drugs make you feel. And that's why mental health's a little bit different than physical health, because I mean, there's a lot of reasons it's different than physical health. But if something feels like it works, it works. Whereas, like, if you've got diabetes and you feel like your blood sugar's better, but actually it's totally and utterly not, it's not working, and things are still. But if you're depressed and you wake up one day and you don't feel depressed, whatever you're doing's worked. And so it is all about our feelings. It's completely about our feelings, because if those neurotransmitters were all still misfiring, and you had too much dopamine, not enough serotonin, or whatever it might be, not enough oxytocin, all of the stuff that is clinically what neurologically is going on, but you felt fine, then you're not actually depressed, even if from a biological level you are.
Strange that you mentioned neuroscientists, because in what I do is a glorified server of alcohol. I'm a bar supervisor at my local pub. We actually have a neuroscientist coming to work for us. He's a student in neuroscience, and he's coming to actually work for us. So that should be interesting, although he's going to have a tough challenge with me, I think. But being in that sort of job where you have to speak to people and everything like that, I've seen every kind of person come through that door in the 4 years I've worked at my pub. I've had people that have been through depression, people that have gone through alcohol addiction, people that have lost loved ones. We've held wakes, bipolar, anger issues, everything like that. And as a barman, you're trained to talk to them and say, hey man, what's up? What's going on? And they will open up to you.
Yeah.
Even if you haven't given them drinks. I mean, you give them drinks and they'll just talk and talk and talk. But you sort of give the best advice you can.
Yep.
And you sort of go, from my opinion, this is what I would do to help yourself, or maybe there's someone that you should speak to, and things like that. And one of the best feelings is when you've given someone advice and they've come back and they've said, that advice you gave me a week ago about my problem, my issue, well, I took your advice and that really helped. And it's really good because you have I live in quite a small town, and we have regulars and we have people that aren't, and we have people drifting in and out that are just on holiday or tourists or something like that. And it's really good when you sort of build that bond with someone, and you can automatically recognize when something isn't quite right.
Yeah.
And you can go, hey man, look, what's up? You look pretty down. And as I said, I've been working in there for 4 years, and I've worked in pubs before then, and nothing was like what I work in now. It's just a small little pub.
Yeah.
And we talk to people on a daily basis, and it's kind of one of the things that you pick up when you know something's wrong with the people that you care about, the people that are there every day. And you can go, let's have a chat. Let's take you aside and let's have a chat. And I've done it. The people I work with have done it, and we've employed people with alcohol addiction and things like that to try and help them break that cycle.
That's interesting. People with alcohol addiction in a bar, you employed them?
Yeah. So I was really like apprehensive about it at first. I was like, that's like having a drug addict work at a meth lab. But they were like, no. They can't actually drink behind the bars. They have to work. And in that time that they would spend drinking, they're actually spent working. So it kind of gives them 5 or 6 hours of soberness that can actually going further on from that I didn't need that alcohol for those 5 or 6 hours. Maybe I can push it a little bit longer. It doesn't work all the time. I'll give it that. We've let a few people go, but there are some times when it can be putting someone in a difficult situation where they're like, I'm totally dependent on alcohol. You're behind a bar with so much alcohol near you, but you can't touch any of it. Like, you know, if you were to drink or anything like that, you're right back to the gutter again. You've missed your chance. And sometimes that sort of gives them a sort of like, okay, I've got a chance to make something of myself. If I let these people down, you know, I end up right back where I was again. And we still give them support, and we still, you know, even if we have to let them go, we still give them support, things like that. But we have...
It sounds like you're doing social service work and not, you know...
It kind of is. It's kind of going, here you go, here's some poison, but also have a chat.
Bartenders were therapists before therapists existed. They are, they're you know, and it's who a person will open up to. I'm not sure if I tweeted this or just thought it about 6 months ago. I was saying, like, you know, the streamers are the bartenders of lockdown, because they're the person that someone will come in, feel comfortable enough with, that, okay, you seem okay, I'll open up to you and tell you all my problems. And that's, you know, that's been one of the benefits of bartenders over time, and barbers as well, for men's mental health. Barbers has always been a place where, you know, the person could say, you know, you know, what's going on with you, and you can open up, and it can... That the funny thing is that, like, that's been there forever, and that we've got this stigma around men's mental health. But actually, how many men have opened up to their bartender or their bar manager over time? You know, maybe not to the lads when all the lads are there, but when you're sat having that sly pint on your own before closing time.
Yeah.
You know, it's a trope that's been used in movies countless times. You know, the bartender there that's been polishing the same glass with a tea towel for like 45 minutes.
Just kept on talking to this.
What's going on?
He comes out with some profound advice.
He's basically turned that glass back into sand by the end of the time he's finished with it. He's ground it down. But no, my boss helped me through my PTSD. He's helped me through like so much. My dependency on alcohol isn't as much as it used to be. I still it sounds really strange, but it sort of ties into my PTSD, but I have to drink, if that makes sense. I get really like all over the shop if I don't, and I usually have like 1 or 2 beers, and then I'll go to bed and I'll be nice and calm and everything like that. But if I leave it for 3 or 4 days, my head is just an absolute mess, and I'm like, that's not good. But yeah, he helped me through. He helped me through my PTSD when I had to take a week off work, and he was like, "Look, just chill out." I couldn't be in the house that I'm in at the moment on my own. I had to be with someone else because it took my mind off things. So I would literally, the pub would open at 11 o'clock. So I'd go to the pub at 11 o'clock and I'd sit there with glasses of water until it closed at 12 o'clock. And then I'd come back home and I'd have to have someone here. And yeah, he just helped me through that because he was, he's ex-Navy. So he helped me with that because he has his own PTSD to deal with as well. So he was like, this is what helped me: breathing exercises, taking minds off things and things like that.
What kind of breathing exercise did he show you?
So he was kind of helping me with, like, when I would have a panic attack. He would like, right, breathe in through your nose, hold it, breathe out through your mouth, exhale, clear your mind, breathe in through your nose again, exhale, clear your mind, breathe in. And it really just calmed me down like so much. And like, it's difficult to describe because I'd never had PTSD until 2 years ago. 2 years ago. But my hands were shaking. I felt sick. My head was just spinning. It was like being really drunk, but also really nervous at the same time. So your hands would go, and your mind would go, and everything like that would go, and you'd be like stop, calm down, breathe, take some time, and just focus in on what you need to do. And that's what I focused on, and it was great. It was, it helped me through it, and now I'm able to be here on my own.
Do you feel like and I don't mean to criticize you or anything,
No, go ahead. I work in a pub. People criticize me all the time. Fine.
I want another beer. It's not cold enough. Now, is it like, do you think it's too much sometimes for you? I mean, like taking in all these stories of people coming to you, and I mean, you're not a professional mental health
no, not
coach or anything. So yeah. I bet if I'm in your situation, I would ask myself very often also, like, what line do I overstep? What can I say? Because I mean, you can't give them like professional advice, but you're there to listen, I guess. This is
so my job is to give people a good time. It's basically in my little pack that I've got over there. You are there to give people a good time. And if someone's not having a good time, if someone's down or someone's depressed, trying to lift their spirits up is something that I've got to try and do. And even if my words fall on deaf ears, I can at least then go to myself, well, I've tried. If they take my advice or they don't take my advice, at least I tried.
So you're putting a positive energy into it and you're going out with it. It's not affecting you?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's not affecting me. Like, whatever, it's the whole thing of you leave home at home and you leave work at work. You don't mix the two. So anything that people tell me at work, that stays at work, unless I feel that it is properly a life-threatening thing, and then I'll go to my boss and I'll say, look, this person's in quite some deep problems, and I think we need to have a serious chat about it. But that has never ever come up. And then all my home stuff is my home stuff. So my streaming, my gaming, everything like that is all my home stuff. And that's kind of an escape. It's like, like, oh, I'll come back home and I'll play some games and things like that, and I'll forget about everything.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas at work, I am running the bar. I'm making sure everyone's safe, everyone's happy, and everyone's having a good time and things like that. So I leave things at the door when I leave work. But giving people advice is, as you say, I'm not trained in any way. All I am really trained to do as a bartender is listen. And that's all I do. And I listen, and then I say, I'll do this. Or I get where you're coming from, but have you factored in these things? Or maybe you should try this. And I try and go through, I try and put myself in their position and think about what I would do to help them, and try and go through that way. And as I said, if people take my advice or don't take my advice, I can then step back from it and go, do you know what? I tried. And if I help someone, I help someone. If I didn't, then at least I tried to help someone. And that's basically my
great.
job. Yeah.
What about you, Dave? I bet like you get a lot of time. Do you get a lot of time the same questions from people?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, there ends up being patterns. I try not to treat anyone like a pattern, and I try not to treat
Can you give me an example for a typical question you get in
I'll
chat
give you
about mental health?
I'll give you the one about that I get the most often, which is this one I do know is enough of a pattern, and I can almost come across like Teacups will probably know what this is, a Blackpool Pleasure Beach level psychic. It's like I'll be able to, I bet this is that as well. And I try not to put words in people's mouth most of the time, but this one comes up so often. And I'm also one of these people. It's the person that has the inability to put themselves first. And basically I'll be able to say to that person, okay, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that, you're the primary caregiver within your family, and you're probably in a caregiving role in work as well. So you'll often get like nurses, teachers, coaches, whatever it might be. And then I'll be like, okay, and you're the friend that everyone comes to, like with everything, right? And then he's like, okay, have you ever spoken to your friends about needing some help? And they turn around to you and say, how can you need help? You're the one who's always helping everybody else. And it's like, well, that's like, driving your car around all day and saying, how can you be out of petrol? You've been driving me around all day. It's but the most common kind of thing that we're there is the idea between being selfish and self-first. People think to put themselves first is selfish, and this comes up like once a week, if not more. When I do one-to-ones, it comes up even more frequently than that, but in stream it comes up like
is that connected again to not being good enough?
There's absolutely part of it. It ends up leading to a lot of people's coping mechanisms. So if a person's needs aren't being met through better coping mechanisms, we will meet those needs through things like food or alcohol or drugs. If a person, as a kid, when I was being bullied, I would comfort eat at home, and comfort eating, it's something I call a boomerang. Basically, it goes forward only to come back. It gives you the pleasure in the first place. It gives you that positive. It gives you that comfort. But it doesn't get rid of the 99 problems that led to you needing that comfort. And now you've got all of those problems, and the boomerang comes whipping back, and you've got a nice layer of self-loathing on top of it. And more often than not, people get into these situations because like alcohol is a quick way to put yourself first. Food is a quick way to put yourself first. If you can't allocate time for yourself, and an actual activity where you've got to put time and dedication into it, you'll give yourself the quick fix. Even people who say, oh, I can't put myself first, they've probably got a bit of time where they sit and watch Netflix and just kind of mentally check out or whatever. But the other thing is, most people that do that as you said, it's just come back to self-esteem in a way. Yeah, because most people that do that, they get into that pattern because when our energy's up here, we love the fact that people want us. We love the fact that people need us. And we're more than happy to help because we feel valued. We feel powerful when we help other people. Problem is, when people realize that, everyone comes knocking. And you can give 5% to when you're at 100%, you can give 5% to someone else and still be fine and don't even notice the difference. But if 20 people ask you for 5%, someone's asking for your last 5. And then you get to that point where it's like, when's my turn? I don't feel like myself anymore. When's someone going to help me? And no one does, because we've set those things. And as a result of that usually is what leads into a person taking up one of these less helpful, these boomerang coping mechanisms. So what I kind of teach people to do in that situation is, like, if they're given 100% of the quantity of their time to other people, well, we can actually look at it and say, how's the quality of that time? Over time, the more tired, the more resentful, the more bitter we get about it. When we've got those frayed edges and all the rest of it, I know from taking my kids on the school run, it's like I'd be like silent driving the car, half asleep. And I've been looking after like friends, family, clients every hour of the day, the day before, looking after the kids, and it's and then I'm driving as this absolute shell of a human being in the morning, And then when I started putting myself first, as like getting a session in the gym in there, or getting an early night with some reading, you only need to take back a little bit of the quantity of the time. You only need to take back like half an hour twice a week or something. It doesn't have to be, I'm going to put myself first all the time. But when you start to do that, the quality of that time starts to go back up again. So you can either give everyone else 100% of your dregs, or you can give everybody else 90% of the best of you.
I like that. That's good. That's good. It makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense. I was recently, when I was in esports, I was giving all of my time away to the esports company and things like that, and everybody was suffering across the board. My family, the people that I gamed with, myself. I was just tired all the time and always felt like I wasn't getting things done. And I've reined that back quite a bit, and got back to gaming for myself and things like that. And the quality of life around the board has improved, and the quality of the person that I am around the family has improved. So that's a very valid.
It's a common problem, right? In point of streamers, I guess time management and including time for yourself, right?
Oh yeah,
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. What's time management? Everyone was happy when I gave them 8 hours that day, so let's give them 10 hours next time, or whatever it might be. It's
my hardest time management is figuring out. And I mean, this is one of those boohoo me problems, but it's figuring out what game I'm going to play. What game am I going to play? That is such a struggle with my time management, because there's so much that I want to do, and then I just don't have the time or the schedule to do it. Like, I would love to have a schedule where I could play this Monday, this Tuesday, this Wednesday, but it's sporadic. So that's a problem I run into a lot with my time management, is what game am I going to play?
See, I think I don't know how many of the Discord people actually know like why I suffer with mental health issues, but it comes down to time management for me as well. I had a partner, and we had 2 boys. We had Griffin and we had Leo, and my day-to-day would be wake up, take one of them to nursery, come back, make sure the other one went down for a nap, and wake him up, give him some lunch, and things like that. Then go and pick the other one up from nursery, bring him back home. My ex-partner was suffering with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome and fibromyalgia. And so I kind of felt like it was up to me to take care of the boys and take care of her. And I was more than happy to do that. Like, as a guy, I was more than happy to do that. I'm more than happy to take care of the kids while she was suffering with these issues. And, you know, she'd give me two beautiful boys. It was the least I could do. And then I'd have the kids would go to bed, and then I'd go to work. And I'd be at work until maybe at the latest 2 o'clock in the morning, and then come home, go to bed, rinse and repeat. When I found out that my ex-partner was cheating on me, I didn't know what to do. I was kind of in a kind of daze. I was at work at the time with one of my friends who is disabled herself, and my ex-partner used to go up to her place and take care of her. But what I found out was that she would go up there and invite her ex-boyfriend around there as well and sleep with him there. So I found out all of this, and I had text messages and things like that, and it was nuts. I went round to my friend's house that's disabled, and she was showing me all these, and I was there with one of my friends actually as well, and her father-in-law and mother-in-law were there as well. And I had to go outside because I threw up outside. I was so ill. And I remember calling her. I remember calling my ex-partner's mother as I was going down, as I was in work still, in this kind of daze of what had gone on. And her mother came and picked me up from work, drove me down here, and she was like, "What do you want to do?" And I was like, "I don't want to see her. I just want her out of here. I just don't want to see her at all." And her mother came and picked her up and took her away, and I came up back in here, and I had a few friends around later on in the evening because I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm so like out of my head. And they came round and they helped me. They helped me. They supported me. And then my ex-partner's mother came round the next day, and she said, "Look, you're going through a lot. How about if we take the kids for a couple of days and let you, figure out your head and everything like that?" It's like, that would be brilliant. Thank you very much. And they never brought them back. They never brought my kids back. And I found out that she had been saying that I was abusive to the children, that I had screamed and shouted in their faces, that I would hide her medication and this, that, and the other, that I would spend all the money on myself and things. And I was like, no, this is her telling you this and you believing it on face value because she's your daughter. You haven't spoken to me about it. And I was just like, it got to the point where, as I said, I couldn't be in my house on my own. I was hearing voices in my own head that I really didn't like, so I couldn't be in here. So I had to be out of the house. I had two friends around that helped me like rearrange my living room to try and help it because it was all back in the way it used to be. And we went out for drinks after that, and I literally saw a girl with the same hairstyle that my ex-partner used to have, and I had a panic attack. I went instantly into panic mode. I said, "We have to leave this pub right now." We went into a different pub. I was like, I didn't even say anything. I just left, and I came back here. I locked my front door. I went upstairs. I went to the bathroom. I put my phone on my computer table. And then I remember seeing the cat, and I laid down next to the cat. And then I was like, right, I'm going to go to bed. And then my legs didn't work because I hadn't eaten for 5 days straight. So my legs just did not work. And I had to like sort of army crawl back to my desk, pick up my phone, call my friend that had been round previously and say, look, I need you to come help me. And I'd locked the door. So I was like trying to find the key and I was like, oh, there it is. Found the key. Army crawled back to my front door, which is all the way through there. Sort of grabbed the door handle, pull myself up, unlock the door because he was going to kick the door in. And he dragged me onto the sofa and just sat me in front of Avengers Endgame and I fell asleep on the sofa. And then I had a week off work because I had a panic attack at work. Because it was something so simple was that the day I found out that she had been doing all this was a Tuesday and I was working on a Tuesday and I had a panic attack over Tuesdays. So I was like, this is a bit odd. And I was just down and out. They sent me home. So I had a week off work and steadily I got better and I got better. And I was, mentally building myself up to go back to work. And my friend, Steve, who's a heavyweight lifter, he was like, come on, we got to get you out of this. Took me to the gym. He was like, this will help. So I started at the gym and all that. Got me back here. And I was fine. And then it was about a year or so after that, I met my new partner, who's upstairs in bed because she's got to be up at 5 a.m. And now I'm just happy. I'm just happy. I still have the odd things that come up, but my mental attitude is I'm just gonna beat the crap out of you with happiness, and that'll be fine, and I'll just be happy. And no, you can't rear your ugly head at me because kittens and puppies and flowers and sunshine and fuck you, you're down there now. and I'm fine. So that's what I do.
Charge it with positivity, right?
Yeah,
right?
yeah, I gotta do it. I'm like the happiest guy ever. Even if I'm losing at a game of Apex, I'll be happy as hell. I don't mind. I'll be GGing to the enemy team all the way along.
Well, that there says a lot. Apex can get pretty competitive. Well, guys, we are about to close it out. We are going to take one more question, though. We have one here in chat. I'm gonna shoot that over to Dave, and it's the one from Stevie there. And again, if you don't feel comfortable answering it, because it is dealing with suicidal thoughts and things like that, and I know that is some iffy ground, which we did a full charity event with the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. Yeah. So, I mean, if you don't feel comfortable with that, Dave, let us know, and we'll definitely shoot Stevie in the right direction. But that's completely up to you if you want to take that.
No, it's okay. I'm happy to.
Can you read it out loud one time, Deadeye? Because for the viewer,
absolutely.
And after they don't see it, they need to hear it, the question.
So Stevie asked in chat here, I've got a question. It may be too much. Apologies if it's too much. The advice is for those who are connected to someone or in a relationship with someone, friends with someone who has had a suicidal thoughts or has written suicide letters, or how to be with them, how to approach them when, you can kind of identify that they're going back into hiding or feeling a certain way. How can, and that's basically the question there. How can you approach them, and what's some things that you can do, if somebody that you're in a relationship with or that you care about, friend of yours, has had those thoughts, displayed that behavior in the past, how would you go about addressing that, and especially if you see that they're kind of slipping back into that mindset?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I did my suicide prevention training with Papyrus in the UK, who are an absolutely amazing charity, and they've got a helpline as well that people can.
I saw them; they do great work.
Yeah, they're really, really good. And the one thing that really surprised me, within the first couple of hours of the course, they basically we did an exercise that said about how to actually approach someone and talk about suicide, and they were like, the best way to do it is as direct as possible. And everyone in the room was like, really? Like, you know, you want to be outright direct about this. You want, because, and then they role played it and they said, like, if you think about it, imagine, and this is for a partner we're talking about here, but imagine, for example, and you're like, you know what, I'm just asking, like, I don't really, you know, feel free to not answer this. And I'm just asking because I need to make sure that I've asked. But when you say that you're feeling like this, and then you'd say something like, oh, you don't mean you're going to do something stupid, do you? Or you don't mean you're going to do something severe or whatever, or, you know, and all of these questions that going in with that approach, it kind of makes the other person kind of uncomfortable about the fact that you're asking in a way where you're just ticking a box. And it's funny because I've got my history of trying to take my own life, and my mum, whenever I have a low mood, now her thing is, oh, you're not going to do anything stupid, are you? And I'm just like, no. It's like, but the thing is that adds on to the idea that sure I understand. Siri's not sure she understands. But that adds on to the idea that if someone is feeling that way, referring to it as something stupid or anything like that, it's quite stigmatizing. It can make a person then think, well, if this is something stupid and I'm thinking this, and then am I something stupid? And we were basically told just to say to the person, are you thinking about suicide? And because they said, you're not going to put the idea in their head. People worry that by asking that question that it'll make a person think, like, it's like when you say to someone, oh, you're looking a bit tired, and they didn't realize they were looking a bit tired, and then they go, oh, am I? And then the next thing they're feeling tired, right? It's not like that with suicide. You're not going to plant the idea of suicide into somebody's head by saying, are you thinking about suicide? And it's watch out for various phrases. The phrase, I don't want to be here anymore. I can't keep going on like this. Looking out for phrases like that. But when so you'd approach it and say, you know, when you say, I don't want to be here anymore, do you mean suicide, that you're feeling suicidal? And they'll either basically go no, or they'll say, actually, yes, I am. Now, you're not going to have put that idea in the person's head, so it's okay to ask that question. What to do after that point is varies from person to person, but basically, ask them, what help do you need? Like, it's such a simple concept, but not enough people realize it. Ask that person, do you want to talk about it? Like, if you say to them, look, I'm here with you, whether you want me to, if you want to sit and talk about it, I'll sit and listen. If you want to talk about like happy memories, I'll sit and talk about happy memories with you. If you want to get under a blanket fort and watch Avengers Endgame, I'll do that with you twice, you know. And I thought I'd have you on Endgame Teacups.
I want to do that now. I want to do that now too. But
like, this is the whole thing, is that we're always, you know, like I said before, when you say don't, right? When you say don't and suddenly a person wants to, or so much of the advice out there is what not to say to a person who's struggling. It's like, don't say this, don't say that. And the one thing that we were told, like, there's only one thing that you shouldn't say. Well, it was two actually. One is think about like what this will do on other people, because when someone's in front of you expressing their pain, they want to know that you're thinking about them and their pain, not that you're thinking about what their pain might do to other people. It's like, it's very invalidating. And the other thing is, don't ever even jokingly say, oh, go on then, do it. But other than that, the general rule was, there's no actual playbook. It's like, if it keeps them alive, it keeps them alive. It doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter what you do. But that, and then the other thing with suicide prevention is that your actual goal isn't to keep the person alive forever. The goal is to keep the person alive through the suicidal ideations. So it's keeping that person safe for now is the actual terminology that's used. So keep that person safe, but there's something called Beck's triad, and Beck's triad is, generally speaking, most suicidal people will be experiencing what Beck calls the three lies, or the three distortions, which is they'll be believing, one, that they are a terrible person. They'll be believing, I'm like, when I shared my suicide story before, I believed that I was worthless. I believed I had nothing left to give to my kids. There was nothing. Number two is they will believe something about the world, which will be, the world is a terrible place. Nobody likes me. Everyone's against me. I've got no one, kind of thing. Again, as I said to you with my story, I've got no one. I'd systematically lost everybody that was in my life a year before that point. And then number 3, and this is the biggie, and we're all a little bit guilty of thinking this at some point, is it's always going to be like this. Now, it's always going to be like this. The problem with that phrase is, if I was to kind of hold out this glass and say, how much does this weigh? It doesn't weigh much if I'm holding it here for 10 seconds. If I hold it here for 10 minutes, it gets a little bit heavier. Hold it there for 10 hours, my arm's going to want to fall off. Hold it there for 10 days, I'm never using that arm again. The weight of the things that we have to carry gets multiplied by the amount of time that we have to carry it for. If you think that what you are feeling in this exact moment, that you are going to have to carry that forever, it's going to be multiplied. All 3 of these things are lies. You are a valuable person. You still have capabilities. So long as there is breath in your lungs, there is still a chance to change. There is still a chance to be better, to do better, to overcome. The world, it's a reasonably neutral place. There's evidence out there that proves it's terrible. There's evidence out there that proves it's good. Depends what news channels you look at. Go and look up Tank's positive news. Tank Sinatra, the guy's name is. He's an absolute tank. But that's good. It gives you some positive news on your feed every day. But the third one is that this too shall pass. That's a cliche, but it's a cliche that works. It's one that I use myself a lot, in the fact that, because I still have bouts of depression, I still have bouts of mania, and these things shall pass. But the main thing is that that whole number 2, the world, nobody likes me, right? Nobody, no one would miss me, all that. It's not the person that, when they think that, they're not being melodramatic when they express those things. That is genuinely what a suicidal person believes, not thinks. They believe that no one would miss them. Everyone would be better off without them. And we never get to find that out until usually, you see it when people's eulogies, and people are like, oh my God, they were so amazing and all the rest of it. And no one says that to them. So yes, basically tell that person, however you need me to be here, let's do that. Because that person, they might turn around and say, I don't know. But there's an amazing film called What Dreams May Come, and the expression in that, and I can even feel myself going before I even say it. Oh, I've got this is the number 1 piece of equipment in my stream room. Most important thing. It's not my lights. It's not my monitors. It's this box of tissues. And there's an expression which was where the guy Robin Williams it is as well, which makes it even harder. Is he turns around and says to his wife, they're both in the afterlife. Don't want to give too many spoilers away. It's the problem wasn't that I couldn't help you get to heaven. The problem was that I wasn't prepared to go through hell with you. Well, it's a variation that I've butchered it a little bit, but sometimes that person wants that person will feel like a burden. That person will feel like no one wants anything to do with them. Do what you can to be like, no, we're in this together. If nothing else, I can't promise you anything else about the rest of this world, but I can promise you that I'm on your team.
That's well said. That's very well said.
Yep, I think. Do you have anything in closing, Mizzi, that you want to say?
Oh yeah, guys, we are hitting the end here. First, I want to thank especially all the guys who did the donos today here in the stream. Dave, thank you so much. You donated. I saw you did a dono as well. Unexpected. Thank you guys, really. Thank you so much for the support. We hope we could help you a little bit today, and I